I become a Mecha. I can evolve infinitely. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 76, Reverse Charging. What on earth does it want to do? Parasitize. As the duration of the overload mode ended, Crossing Shine's overall power had dropped to half of the normal level. It can be said that facing the attack of the Red Hurricane, Crossing Shine had no room for resistance. But the Red Hurricane did not tear itself into pieces as Yuziro imagined. Warning, the Gorilla Artillery is disconnected. Warning, the muscle unit is not responding. Warning, the power transmission is blocked. Everything in Yuziro's side suddenly disappeared and turned into a vast white. This is his real place as a machine soul, the consciousness space. Click. The sound of broken glass echoed in Yuziro's ears, and a crack like a bullet hole suddenly appeared in the white air. No, it's not parasitism, it's a system invasion. Yuziro, who was suspended in the center of the space, felt unprecedented fear as the monster evolved to this point. As the functions on Crossing Shine's body were disconnected one by one, the cracks in the air became more and more like an eggshell about to break. The entire space has been pushed to the edge of the cliff and is in danger. Just one last bit. Yuziro narrowed his eyes, concentrating on feeling the position of the tentacles in Crossing Shine's body. In the real world, 8 tentacles swaying like seaweed are emitting dazzling blue light. Wherever the tentacles pass, you can see the flashing electric current dancing on the steel. The Red Hurricane carefully controlled these tentacles, letting them continue to drill into the corners of Crossing Shine's body. It wanted to completely paralyze Crossing Shine and ensure that there would be no resistance at the most critical link. Finally, after the red light on Crossing Shine's single eye went out, all the tentacles gathered in front of Crossing Shine's chest from all directions. The next second, they pounced into Crossing Shine's orange-red power furnace like a python hunting. Warning, the main control system is being invaded. After hearing the system's warning, Yuziro's pupils suddenly shrank. The time has come. The frenzied electric current ran rampant in Crossing Shine's power furnace, and the dazzling electric light was like thunder in the sky, instantly lighting up the entire armory. However, within a second Red Hurricane noticed something was wrong. The originally disordered electric current was suddenly bound by an invisible force and was sucked into the core of the power furnace in a spiral shape. Crossing Shine was using the power furnace as a container to absorb the electric energy of Red Hurricane. In the consciousness space, the dense cracks were rapidly dissipating, but Yuziro's expression still looked very nervous. This behavior of storing electric energy in the power furnace was tantamount to suicide for ordinary mechas. If Crossing Shine had not first absorbed electric energy in the black sky, Yuziro would not dare to bet whether his black technology power furnace could do this. Even nuclear electric hybrid armor like Red Hurricane divides nuclear power and electric power into 2 energy modules for operation, but the waste energy generated by nuclear power is also converted into storable electric energy through special devices to provide long-term battery life. For a power furnace like Crossing Shine's, no one can explain the principle clearly for the time being. But even if it can be absorbed, it can only be absorbed under specific conditions. Under normal circumstances, the performance of this power reactor is no different from that of a normal nuclear power reactor. It can neither keep the Mecha in overload mode endlessly, nor provide power that exceeds the body's tolerance limit. In the dark sky, Crossing Shine charged the power reactor through a cable plugged into the body interface. This method is the safest and most stable. When the Red Hurricane released electrical energy to attack Crossing Shine could not directly absorb it with the power reactor. Only when the 8 tentacles completely penetrated the power reactor and touched the energy core, the power reactor could directly absorb energy. Raw. At this time, the Red Hurricane was like a ball of lightning wrapped in steel, and the eye-catching red paint seemed dull under the exaggerated brightness. Warning, the current power has exceeded the body's tolerance threshold. In just a few seconds, Crossing Shine's power reactor had recovered to a level that could immediately start overloading, but his body was almost unable to hold on. Without any auxiliary capacitor units, the energy that his power reactor could carry was limited. Bang! Finally, after Xingshan's energy storage was completely saturated, the tentacles that were originally sucked tightly on the inner wall of the power furnace suddenly popped out. The red hurricane, which had been a power bank, took several steps back. The muscle tissue distributed on the periphery of the armor had all shriveled up, hanging on the mechanical structure like withered bark. Xingshan, who absorbed too much electricity, was not much better. It still took time to convert this electricity into kinetic energy sufficient to drive the mecha. Even if Yuzao had allowed the power furnace to convert at full speed at the risk of damaging the cooling device, Xingshan was still a piece of scrap metal that could not move. At this moment, the sunken torso of the red hurricane suddenly began to swell. Pieces of churning flesh and blood broke through the twisted red armor and squeezed the already flattened power furnace out of the body. Boom. Boom. A heart with a diameter of more than 3 meters beat vigorously on the chest of the red hurricane. The blue fluorescence it emitted even penetrated the thick flesh and blood, making it impossible to look away. Is this its weakness? Yuzao couldn't help but smile bitterly. If he had any better weapon than the gloves, then the heart hiding behind the power reactor armor would not be so energetic. The cruel reality is that both mechas have now lost their combat capabilities. They can only listen to the thunderous beating of the heart and wait for death to come. At this time, the damaged armor on the hands of Red Hurricane has been replaced by white bones, and the turbine that had stopped working has started to rotate again. This hybrid mecha can also exert its full power just by relying on electricity. But Yuzao knew that this was the sound of the thunder turbine electric acceleration charging fist being charged. But he was wrong. The sound was getting closer and louder. A dazzling blue light suddenly broke into the armory from the hole in the door and hit Red Hurricane's head directly, blowing it into a ball of blood on the spot. Friendly mecha approaching. When Yuzao heard the system prompt, Manuscript 03 had already rushed into the armory at the speed of breaking the sound barrier, swinging the sword at Red Hurricane's arm. Puff. The high-frequency hot sword left two orange-red after images in the air, and then a giant mechanical arm covered with green beast blood fell to the ground. When Manuscript 03 held two swords and blocked the fallen crossing Shan, Satoyu and Daozi also climbed out of Heioji's cockpit. I'm sorry, everyone, I'm late. Chapter 77 Secondary Overload. Colonel Sato, Daozi, quickly notify the others to leave the war factory. Beiying spoke before anyone else could speak. We still have spare mechas to drive. Hold on. Sato Zion pulled Daozi and prepared to go to the hangar. However, Beiying's next sentence made the two of them stunned. Don't go. It controls all the mechas. The reason why Beiying came so late was because he was entangled with other mechas on the road. As soon as Beiying finished speaking, Yuzao saw a red dot moving at high speed towards the armory on the energy radar. Roar. The roar of the red hurricane interrupted the conversation of everyone, and the three tentacles behind it suddenly entangled the mechanical arm that fell to the ground and reconnected it to the broken end. It was imitating the method used by Crossing Shan before. Realizing that something was wrong, Sato Zion immediately pulled Daozi and turned around, running along the wall towards the factory gate. As soon as the two left the armory, Beiying drove the Manuscript 03 directly towards the Red Hurricane that had not yet fully connected its arm. Boom boom boom. Just when Manuscript 03's high-frequency hot sword was about to hit the Red Hurricane, 3 cannons exploded at Manuscript 03's head, shoulder and elbow joints. The orange-red sword edge finally only had time to cut off one tentacle of the Red Hurricane. At the same time, a blue-painted mecha had also arrived on the battlefield. Second-generation mecha? Yuzao found that the data displayed by her system did not match the blue mecha in front of her at all. In fact, the same was true for Heioji. It was clearly shown in the database as a second-generation mecha, but the height, weight, and equipment modules of the mecha were different from those recorded. They are not standard third-generation mechas. They are all modified on the basis of the second generation. Beiying controlled Manuscript 03 and used two swords to block the sneak attack of the Red Hurricane and then retreated to Crossing Shan. Beiying had already dismantled 2 such mechas on the way here. Although she was not afraid of fighting alone, once the opponent had a numerical advantage, Manuscript 03 would inevitably fall into a disadvantage. Gudang. After a strange sound, the Red Hurricane's broken arm had been completely reattached by the tentacles. Compared to Crossing Shine, the Red Hurricane could use the rapidly growing flesh and blood to make this arm no different from the original. Can you still fight? Beiying controlled Manuscript 03 to cross the two swords to block in front of her chest. She couldn't guarantee that she could fight two alone, not to mention that there was a level 4 monster in the Red Hurricane's body. 30 seconds. Yuziro carefully felt the energy replacement in the power furnace. My capacitor unit is all scrapped. Even if I stand up, I only have 10 seconds to fight. Then I won't protect you in vain. Beiying's tone sounded like a sigh of relief. 30 seconds, not a second more. Now there are only 24 seconds. Manuscript 03 took the initiative to rush towards the Red Hurricane, and the turboelectric accelerator hidden under the armor was fully deployed. At the same time, the blue mecha standing at the door immediately activated the heavy armor-piercing artillery on the shoulder and launched an artillery attack on Crossing Shine, who was lying on the ground. Leave me alone. Yuziro's words made Beiying grit her teeth and give up the idea of blocking the fire for Crossing Shine. She believed that, since Crossing Shine could say this, it meant that he could really deal with it. Bang, bang, bang. A dazzling fire exploded on Crossing Shine's armor. Warning, chest armor damaged by 31%. In fact, Yuziro's method was not considered a coping at all. He just distributed the power to the black armor covering the outer periphery of the body in advance, allowing it to grow faster, so as to resist the opponent's artillery fire. Although this method would also cause a certain degree of damage to Crossing Shine's body, he did not want Beiying to be restricted everywhere. In order to protect himself, that would only push the two into a more passive position. Before Manuscript 03 was about to enter the attack range of the Red Hurricane, Beiying suddenly controlled the mecha and threw the high-frequency hot sword in his right hand towards the position where the Red Hurricane might reach out. However, the quick-reacting Red Hurricane did not fall into the trap. It forcibly retracted its arm that was about to be raised and dodged the attack sideways. The rotating orange-red sword blade inserted into the alloy wall. But this also bought time for Beiying. The next second, Manuscript 03, who had seized the initiative, passed the Red Hurricane like a gust of wind. Realizing that something was wrong, the blue mecha immediately stopped shooting and moved to the back of the bunker. Roar. The Red Hurricane immediately gave up the idea of chasing Manuscript 03 and rushed directly to Crossing Shine. The moment Beiying noticed the movement of the Red Hurricane, a moment of hesitation flashed in her eyes. She wanted to turn around and stop the other party, as if they had telepathic communication. The moment Beiying had this idea, she seemed to hear the rejection from Crossing Shine, even though Yuziro didn't say anything at all. Beiying decided to believe Crossing Shine. In the blink of an eye, the Manuscript 03, which was sprinting at full speed, had rushed to the front of the blue mecha and swung a sword at the opponent's power reactor. The scorching heat instantly melted the heavy armor, and the high-speed vibrating sword edge cut iron like mud, tearing everything it touched into pieces as easily as cutting jelly. When Manuscript 03 drew a crescent moon with his sword, a shocking crack appeared on the chest of the blue mecha. Boom. With the extinguished power reactor as the dividing line, the inactive blue mecha split into two on the spot, and the cut chest and the huge head fell to the ground together. Almost at the moment when the hot sword came out of the body, Beiying controlled Manuscript 03 to unfold the X-wing armor behind it and lock the Red Hurricane. Fire. 6 missiles split into 24 blue comets in the air, hitting the Red Hurricane before its fist fell. But what Beiying didn't expect was that the Red Hurricane actually hit the blue flames on its body and hit it hard. Warning, the left arm is damaged. Even though the direction of the Red Hurricane's attack was offset, this violent blow still directly smashed Xingqian's left arm in the armor with one punch. Time is up. Yuziro could feel that all the energy had been converted, and the surging kinetic energy was filling the power furnace on Crossing Shine's chest. Soul synchronization. He still strengthened the Lingyu elastic muscle unit, but not to allow Crossing Shine to make smoother movements, but to let these dozens of things made of special materials act as temporary capacitor units. In an instant, Crossing Shine's body burst out with a dazzling light like daylight. Yuziro could even feel that the volume of every muscle unit in the body had doubled. They were like fruits that were about to explode. filling up Crossing Shine's body space. Roar. Amid the frenzied roar of the red hurricane, Crossing Shine raised his glowing right arm and blocked the opponent's fist. Overload mode is on. He wants to burn this body. Chapter 78. Front and back attack. Crack. Crossing Shine's glowing giant palm not only blocked the attack of the red hurricane, but also crushed the opponent's hand armor. The next second, the rotating turbine collapsed on the spot, and the 5 metal fingers that were squeezed into a ball were pulled off by Crossing Shine. Green beast blood gushed out from the elbow joint of the red hurricane, dyeing Crossing Shine's upper body green. Roar. The red hurricane screamed miserably, covering its broken arm, while turning to flee from Crossing Shine. This is the instinct of creatures when facing fear. 7 seconds. Yuziro calculated Crossing Shine's last free action time. He must kill the opponent before then. Boom. Crossing Shine stood up from the ground without any support, waving his only remaining right arm, and strode towards the red hurricane. Yuziro has heard the sound of Lingaiu's elastic muscle units breaking one after another, and the violent energy with nowhere to stay is destroying Crossing Shine's mechanical structure from the inside. At this moment, he is like a blue sun that is about to explode with the last ray of light and brilliance. 5 seconds. Crossing Shine was getting closer and closer to the red hurricane, but according to the current relative speed, Crossing Shine would definitely lose his ability to move when he caught up with the red hurricane. At this moment, Beiying also pulled out the high-frequency hot sword inserted in the wall and drove the fully powered Manuscript 03 head-on to rush towards the red hurricane. Facing the front and back attacks of Manuscript 03 and Crossing Shine, the red hurricane chose to throw a last punch at the Manuscript 03 in front of it. Although the red hurricane had also been severely damaged, its remaining arm could still throw a full-powered charging punch. If Manuscript 03 chose to face it head-on, the red hurricane would definitely destroy it. If Manuscript 03 chose to give way and avoid it, the red hurricane would definitely escape from here. But the red hurricane underestimated the mobility of Manuscript 03. Just as the two mechas were about to collide with each other, all the power jets on the Manuscript 03 suddenly burst into light. Then, the white mecha turned around very smoothly and lowered its body at the same time, sliding on its back and kneeling on the ground, leaving 2 deep marks on the right leg of the red hurricane. The red hurricane lost its balance instantly. 1 second. Crossing Shine stepped on the bright sparks created by the Manuscript 03 sliding on the ground and punched his right fist with all his strength. Puff. A dazzling giant fist directly penetrated the chest of the red hurricane, and the beating giant heart was beaten into a ball of meat paste. Target has been killed. As the system prompt popped up in front of Yuziro, the red hurricane fell to the ground like a collapsed mountain. The beast's blood flowed freely on the bumpy floor, and the swollen meat splattered everywhere. At the same time, all the muscle units in Crossing Shine's body were broken. The giant, who was still glowing all over the last second, lost all light like a bursting light bulb in the next second, and fell to the ground with a bang. Crossing Shine. Beiying immediately controlled Manuscript 03 to drop the double swords, and hurriedly knelt down beside Crossing Shine. But what she was facing was not a dying person, but a mecha that was about to be scrapped. She didn't know what she could do now. At this time, Yuziro, who was hiding in the consciousness space, was also extremely weak due to Crossing Shine's injuries. Although he didn't feel pain, his thinking was as slow as if it was glued, as if he would completely faint in a while. When there was still a glimmer of consciousness, Yuziro raised Crossing Shine's index finger with difficulty. Perhaps because of the residual synesthesia with Crossing Shine, Beiying immediately noticed Crossing Shine's subtle movements and subconsciously looked in the direction he pointed. It turned out that in the deeper part of the armory, there was an unactivated mecha. This mecha obviously has not been put into use yet, and it is very likely that it is still in the assembly state because it not only has no right arm, but even the 2 weapon racks on its shoulders are empty. Beiying didn't care about any borrowing procedures, and directly drove the full power Manuscript 03 to drag this incomplete mecha in front of Crossing Shine in the most brutal way. Sure enough, when Crossing Shine collided with the mecha, a large piece of black fluid emerged from Crossing Shine's power furnace, and quickly spread along Crossing Shine's fingers to the mecha that had not yet started. In the next 2 minutes, Beiying saw with his own eyes that the mecha, that was dozens of meters high, was completely assimilated into black fluid, which flowed back to Crossing Shine's body and turned into brand new parts. Crunch. Satoyu drove his old off-road vehicle through the big hole at the entrance of the armory and stopped beside the two mechas with a sudden brake. "Are you okay? The system is gradually recovering." Satoyu interrupted himself before he finished speaking, and even Dalsy, who got off the car with him, covered his mouth in surprise because they just witnessed the process of Crossing Shine fusing the mecha. Damn. Satoyu almost subconsciously hugged Dalsy and took a few steps back. This is really magical. Although they knew that Crossing Shine must have some unknown secrets, this predatory-like repair process still scared the two of them. When I first saw him do this, my reaction was similar to yours. Seeing the damage on Crossing Shine's body being repaired, Beiying felt relieved. If I were driving the Heioji now, I would definitely not be able to resist cutting him. Sato Xiang took a deep breath. "I'm serious, this scene looks like some kind of liquid monster is parasitizing the mecha." Sato Xiang said this, but his tense body relaxed. Dalsy slowly poked his head out from behind Sato Xiang, staring curiously at Crossing Shine, who was about to be repaired with a pair of sky blue eyes. "I heard it. But just as Yuziro opened his mouth, the red single eye on Crossing Shine's head suddenly lit up. Damn it." Sato Xiang and Dalsy were frightened on the spot. "Can you tell me in advance if you are awake?" "I have been awake, but the broadcasting device has just been repaired." Yuziro was telling the truth. "I don't really understand why Mecha, like you, would do such a horrifying thing." Sato Xiang suddenly felt a tightness in his chest. "No matter who you learned this from, don't do such disgusting things in the future. Okay?" As soon as Sato Xiang finished speaking, Crossing Shine completely completed the repair and stood up again from the ground. "What about your hero? What else can we do?" "Repair it. You dismantle all the controlled mechas in the hangar. The people in the war factory can probably only use the modified mechas that have not been delivered before." Sato Xiang said here, pointing to the place where Crossing Shine had pointed before. "It should be, where is my mecha?" Chapter 79, Rising. 2 hours later, in the Omega Spiral Tower, in the conference room. "So in a hurry, you first dismantled the arms and the honeycomb missile launcher of the spare machine, and finally ate the entire mecha, right?" The head of the war factory looked pale and looked at the most elusive person in the hall, Crossing Shine, with a calm and desperate look. "Yes." Although Crossing Shine himself was still helping to clean up the factory, he still participated in the meeting in the form of projection at the strong request of everyone. Alas. The head of the war factory's eyelids twitched slightly, as if he wanted to say something, but in the end he just sighed. "Director Jin, this accident should be blamed on me. I led the monster mecha research plan and misjudged the monster's self-repair ability." Dr. Maki, who was sitting at the head of the conference table, stood up and bowed deeply to everyone. "Everyone, I'm willing to bear the corresponding punishment for this. What's the point of blaming you? The war factory lost 34 technicians and all the mechas were destroyed. The one who started the scolding was also a middle-aged man wearing an Omega uniform. He wore a pair of square glasses and his capable short hair was half white. Drive Song Zangxi, now is not the time to hold someone accountable. Let's think about what to do next." Director Jin helped to smooth things over. "If we don't hold someone accountable, do we have to wait for the Alliance to hold him accountable? Now that the communication is interrupted, no one can deal with him according to the authority process." Song Zangxi's slender eyes stared at Dr. Mika's face. "If we let this kind of person sit in that position, I think we will all be finished in a few days." I agree with Dr. Song Zangxi. Although we have no right to deal with Dr. Maki, we should not let him continue to serve as the leader of Omega. Another female member sitting next to Director Jin expressed her opinion. "Why not vote now and see how many people agree with Dr. Song Zangxi's proposal?" A young man sitting next to Dr. Maki raised his hand first. Swish. Although most people didn't know why the meeting process turned out like this, they still participated in the vote naturally. 21 votes, more than half. The young man finished the counting with a smile. "Wait, can I ask a question?" Satoyu suddenly raised his right hand above his head, and this exaggerated movement immediately attracted everyone's attention. "Of course, Colonel Sato." If Dr. Mickey doesn't serve as the leader, who will replace him? As soon as this was said, everyone present was alert. In terms of seniority, of course it will be Dr. Song Zhangxi who will take over. The middle-aged woman who answered Sato Yu before, who was also the general supervisor of the war factory, answered Sato Yu. Then I will continue to drive the Heoji after I refuse. What do you mean? Are you threatening everyone here? The female supervisor raised her voice and stared at the man with a mocking face in disbelief. Everyone knows about your Omega's little things. You don't have to seize power now. Sato Yu simply opened the skylight and said bluntly, changing the generals at the last minute. Do you know the consequences of doing so? Everyone in the meeting room immediately exchanged glances with each other. Colonel Sato, what you said is just speculation. We are not trying to seize power now, but to prevent everyone's life from being ruined by Dr. Mickey. This time, it was the young man who responded to Sato, and he said it quite bluntly. Then what reason do I have to believe that Dr. Song Zhangxi can do better? You Omegas care least about qualifications and seniority. If it is not because of your lack of ability, why didn't Dr. Song Zhangxi squeeze out Dr. Mickey for 3 consecutive terms? It is best not to comment on a field you don't understand. Colonel Sato. The female supervisor spoke before the young man. Her face was already overcast. You might as well convince me with facts and prove that Dr. Song Zhangxi can do better than Dr. Mickey. Sato raised the corners of his mouth sarcastically, put his hands behind his head, and put on a contemptuous attitude of listening attentively. Then let me, an Omega, speak. The young man took over the conversation. Although Dr. Song Zhangxi's achievements in scientific research are not as good as Dr. Mickey's, he has been managing the 3 departments of Weapon R&D, Power Laboratory and Monster Research Institute with all his heart and soul for so many years. His contributions are obvious to all. Isn't this ability? Of course it is. Those who can join your Omega are all chosen by heaven. Even if Dr. Song Zhangxi can't compete with Dr. Mickey, he is much better than people like me. Colonel Sato is too modest. We can only rely on you and Daozi, the 2 pilots now. You are more important than anyone else. The young man cleverly transferred the pressure to Sato Yu. But I have another question. Since Dr. Song Zhangxi is still in charge of the Monster Research Institute, is this accident also related to his dereliction of duty? Sato Yu changed the subject and threw the ball back. As Dr. Mickey said, this project was led by him personally, and all important decisions were made by Dr. Mickey himself. Dr. Song Zhangxi was just following orders throughout the whole process. Is there anything wrong with this? The young man seemed to be well prepared and regained the initiative with the tone of a questioner. The pressure once again returned to Sato Yu. Do you think I'm targeting Dr. Song Zhangxi? Sato Yu suddenly sat up straight and put on a serious face. I tell you from a soldier's perspective that this accident is not only the responsibility of Dr. Mickey, but also Dr. Song Zhangxi, you, and everyone in Omega. Hearing Sato Yu's remarks, everyone opened their eyes wide. At least 1/3 of the people present were from Omega, and the other 1/3 of the war factory was also closely related to Omega. Do you know what you are talking about? The female supervisor couldn't believe her ears. I said that you Omega, from top to bottom, everyone is responsible for this accident. Sato Yu slammed the table and stood up. His voice was deafening. According to what you said, Dr. Mickey led this project and made every decision, right? Did he cut the monster's body? Did he test the samples? And did he do the cleanup? If any of you find problems in the process and realize the danger, you should be the first to jump out and confront Dr. Mickey and nip the accident in the bud, because this is a matter of life and death. If someone reports the problem, then everyone in the information transmission layer will have the same decision-making power as Dr. Mickey, and none of you can escape responsibility. If no one finds the problem, it shows that you are a bunch of good-for-nothings who have been researching for a long time and can't find any danger. Come on, tell me now, which murderer are you going to nominate to control everyone's lives? Sato Yu glanced at everyone present aggressively. Chapter 80 Fateful Choice. When everyone heard the word murderer, they were all silent. In fact, Sato Yu had no intention of exonerating Dr. Mickey. Whether Omega's incompetence or bureaucracy caused the accident, Dr. Mickey, as the first leader, could not escape the blame. It's just that he didn't want to see such things that should be handled by the Alliance being discussed now. The first priority should be to decide how to clean up this mess, rather than gathering everyone to watch Omega's factional struggle. Before this, Satoru always felt that an organization like Omega that only looks at ability and not qualification should not have such a mess. But he didn't expect that when ability became the only criterion for measuring a person, these people missed the time when they were bound by rules and regulations. Is it because of lack of ability, but wanting to reach a high position, or simply can't stand someone stronger than themselves? Satoru didn't know. He only knew that where there are people, there is comparison and competition. So he simply threw dirty water on the entire Omega, making them all bear heavy accusations. Since you are all rotten from top to bottom, why do you have to pick someone who is not so rotten to lead everyone? As he expected, when the 34 lives became a mountain weighing on their heads, these aggressive guys immediately shut up. Colonel Sato, in your opinion, what should we do now? In the end, it was Director Jin who stood up and broke the silence. Maintain the status quo before the Alliance officially begins the review. But since Dr. Mickey does have an unavoidable responsibility, everyone can refute his decision. But the premise is that you have sufficient reasons, and it is best to come up with a solution. Satoru sat back in his chair, and his face gradually became gentle. Does everyone agree? Director Jin was relieved when he saw that Satoru was no longer strong. This time, everyone in the conference room expressed their agreement, and the few people who had argued before only dared to raise their hands to vote, and they didn't even dare to breathe. I agree with Colonel Satoru's proposal, so let's get back to the main topic. Dr. Mickey seemed quite calm, as if he had already prepared to accept any resolution. How long will it take for the loss report to come out? It's still being counted. The scale of the loss is too large, so there are only a few general items at present. As the person in charge of the war factory, Director Jin was naturally the one to answer this question. Then just talk about the loss of mechas. This is the most important thing at the moment. Director Jin nodded, and his somewhat old hand slid lightly on the conference table, and several charts were projected in front of everyone. According to statistics, the mechas that were severely damaged and needed large-scale repairs are TR-304, TR-305, and TR-307. The damage is still within the controllable range, and the mechas that can be quickly repaired in the hangar are TR-302, also known as Heoji, and TR-303. There is another TR-310 that has not been assembled yet, and Crossing Cheyenne has used it to repair himself. The Red Hurricane that was parasitized by the monster this time cannot be repaired in the short term. Many special parts need to be provided by Kyango. The damage to Manuscript 03 is relatively minor, and we are not sure about Crossing Cheyenne's situation yet. When Director Jin finished his report, everyone's face was covered with a shadow. There are only 2 mechas left. No one can drive these mechas when they are not broken. Our pilots are only Colonel Sato and Aozi. In the final analysis, pilots are more scarce than mechas. It's okay if our own mecha is broken, but the Red Hurricane is the flagship mecha of Zuan's Kankiang. How can we explain to them and Kyango when something like this happens? The bad situation made people start to discuss, and everyone kept expressing their pessimistic attitude towards the current situation. Everyone, I have an idea. Satoru once again took the lead. Colonel Sato, please speak. Drive Mickey was very happy to see someone take the initiative to speak. My opinion is to concentrate all the current resources of the war factory on repairing and strengthening the 3 mechas, Heoji, Mississippi 03 and Xingshan, and then let me and Aozi follow Xingshan and the others to drive the mechas to the front line. Are you crazy? The female supervisor was furious. Now we only have 2 mechas and your 2 pilots left, and you actually want to drive Heoji and go with Zuan's Kankiang. Then who will guard here? Question mark? Not only the female supervisor, but others also began to blame Satoru for what he said. Yeah, how can you leave us alone and say you want to go with other legions? You just want to take this opportunity to escape. The chance of survival will definitely be higher if you catch up with the main force. Are you so unscrupulous just because you are a pilot? It's better to keep this idea in your heart than to say it directly, right? Dong dong. Please be quiet first. Dr. Mickey tapped the table with his fingers. Colonel Sato, can you explain why you did this first? The discussion among the crowd gradually died down, and everyone looked at Satoru with a suspicious look. First of all, the current war factory does not have the ability to repair so many mechas at the same time. The best solution is to concentrate resources on the 3 mechas that can still operate. Secondly, have you forgotten that we have solved the number 1 threat hovering above the base, and its corpse is lying in the monster research field? Now all that is left are some wandering level 3 monsters. Finally, since everyone knows that the battle line of this beast tide attack is very long, then we can't just sit and wait for death, stay here and expect others to fight for us. That's true, but if you and Owzy drive away in the Heioji, what should we do with those of us who stay here? What if there are new monsters attacking us? Director Jin expressed his concerns. I haven't finished speaking yet. Satoru smiled. The reason why everyone stayed is because the Alliance ordered us to resist the beast tide here. Now that the mission is completed, those of us who survived should naturally join the main force. Then why don't we leave? The fundamental reason is not that there are monsters above our heads, but that we don't have large vehicles and can't transfer so many people. But now we have it. The transport ship of the Black Sky has enough space to accommodate everyone. So our 3 mechas will first clean up all the monsters in the city above. The location where the transport ship fell is just near the lifting platform at the southeast exit of the base. As long as there is no threat of monsters, we can repair the transport ship in a short time. As for the lack of mechas and pilots guarding, there is no need to worry. Don't we still have TR-303 and the Meng brothers? Without the Red Hurricane, they can only be wronged for a while and drive TR-303 first. And the Black Sky Legion will stay here and go with everyone, so there is no need to worry about the lack of ground firepower. Finally, the reason why I asked the 3 mechas to set off in advance is to support the large army as soon as possible and end this war as soon as possible. Chapter 81 Best Partner. Colonel Sato's plan is indeed feasible. After everyone was silent for a long time, Director Jin was the first to express his opinion. Although staying here is the safest way, this is not a refuge after all, and the world is not about to be destroyed. Only by solving the source of the problem can we get real safety. Director Jin's words once again triggered people's whispered discussions. I also admit that this plan is feasible, but I still think it's better for the 3 mechas to stay and wait for the transport ship to be repaired before leaving together. The one who spoke was the ground force commander of the United Front Corps. I don't doubt the ability of the Meng brothers to drive mechas, and I believe that our ground forces can do a good job of defense, but some monsters cannot be dealt with by just one mecha and us. The commander's words actually reflected the opinions of many people present. I agree that the damage to the transport ship of the Black Sky Corps is not very serious. I have analyzed it with their people. If it is repaired 24 hours a day, it should be repaired within 2 days at the earliest. A technician from the war factory also spoke up. Yes, 2 days is already very short. And there are so many legions supporting this time, so they don't need our 3 mechas, right? Everyone fell into discussion again. Do you think 2 days is very short? As soon as Satoru opened his mouth, the people in the conference room shut up consciously. 10 years ago, the first monster that emerged from the seabed took only 6 hours to completely destroy the second largest city in Heian, and this was under the continuous obstruction of the military. 9 years ago, Azori, Daokun and Yujin, 3 countries were attacked at the same time. 27 hours before the nuclear strike, the 3 monsters destroyed a total of 7 large cities, causing more than 40 million casualties. 5 years ago, the Wandering Warrior Mecha was defeated, and the level 3 monster took only 10 hours to successively destroy 3 cities including the Jinfu metropolitan area, leaving 14 million people homeless. Now it has been 3 days since the beast tide landed. According to the intelligence brought by the Black Sky Legion, the Alliance forces are concentrated in the Blackstone Canyon for resistance, which is already the hinterland of Zori. How long can the Alliance resist? Once the beast tide breaks through the Black Rock Canyon, within 2 days, we will sink to the bottom of the sea together with the 4th line of defense islands under the attack of the Alliance's strategic level weapons. Satoyu's words once again plunged the conference room into deathly silence. I agree with Colonel Sato's plan, otherwise we will all die. In the end, it was Dr. Mecha who took the lead in making the decision. As long as the Black Sky has no objection. I agree. I agree too. More and more people raised their hands, but Satoyu knew very well that this was a choice they made under pressure. At the moment of life and death, no one wants to leave their lives to others to decide. Even if the three mechas are not considered to be a critical combat force, they can increase the chances of winning for the large army. With more than half of the votes, there is no time to lose. Let's make a plan and start executing it now. Drive Mecha immediately accelerated the meeting process. 2 hours later, in the hangar of the war factory, Meng Chanqing rarely quarreled with Beiyang. In fact, he had not said a word since he and his brother Meng Changkang came to the hangar. Beiyang also saw Meng Chanqing's disappointment. Not only did he not deliberately provoke him, he even tried his best to make his expression look not so cold. You don't have to be too sad. We will definitely repair the Red Hurricane, but we can only temporarily inconvenience you and drive the spare Mecha TR-303 to protect everyone here. Satoyu patted Meng Changkang on the shoulder. Colonel Sato, there is no need to apologize. No one can expect such an accident. The Mecha can be repaired if it is damaged. As long as the situation is under control, it will be fine. While speaking, Meng Changkang turned around and nodded slightly to Satoyu, Beiyang and Crossing Shan respectively. If the three of you hadn't stepped forward, I believe my two brothers would have been killed by our own mechas. The Red Hurricane would never do that. Meng Chanqing, who lowered his head, suddenly gritted his teeth and retorted. Little brother Chanqing is right. What harms people is the monster that parasitizes in the Mecha. It has nothing to do with the Mecha itself. As a pilot himself, Satoyu understands what Meng Chanqing means by this sentence. Like all people who place their emotions on an object, for most pilots, the Mecha that they have been through life and death with also carries the emotions of the pilots. What's more, there is now a Crossing Shan who stands on the side of humans and has independent consciousness. Meng Chanqing. At this moment, Meng Chanqing suddenly heard an unexpected voice. He slowly raised his head and looked at Crossing Shan who was calling his name, his face full of surprise. Do you believe that the Red Hurricane is conscious? When Crossing Shan said this, everyone present stopped what they were doing. Meng Chanqing's eyes widened. When he heard this question, he felt as if his heart slowed down for a beat. The reason why he chose to become an iron pilot was because he wanted to get rid of the family halo that enveloped his head and prove with strength that he was no worse than his brother. Red Hurricane responded to his request. Under the driving of the Meng brothers, this powerful flagship Mecha has never been defeated since its birth. No matter how powerful the enemy is, as long as this inspiring red color appears on the battlefield, victory must belong to mankind. Before long, the brothers and Red Hurricane became the focus of people's attention and were dubbed the undefeated god of war. The last one who could be called a god of war was the first generation Mecha Crossing Shan, which was lying in the dust in the Black Sky hangar at that time. Meng Chanqing, who was in the limelight, naturally didn't want people to compare the performance monster like Red Hurricane with the old Crossing Shan, so he looked down on this antique that took advantage of the times from the bottom of his heart. It can be said that all the pride that Meng Chanqing had so far was brought to him by the Red Hurricane, until all this was broken by the first battle between Beiyang and Crossing Shan. The two brothers had heard from other people in the Legion about the impressive achievements of Crossing Shan and Beiyang in recent days, as if Crossing Shan had once again taken the flag symbolizing hero from the Red Hurricane. And now, with the destruction of the Red Hurricane, Meng Chanqing has completely lost his capital for pride. Compared with Beiyang and Crossing Shan, he is now just an ordinary pilot responsible for driving a reserve Mecha. Looking at Crossing Shan's red single eye, Meng Chanqing's forehead oozed fine beads of sweat, and his heartbeat became faster and faster. I believe it. At this moment, he seemed to suddenly understand what the subtle relationship between the Mecha and the driver is. It's a bond. Then I'll convey that sentence for him. Crossing Shan stretched out his huge fist and placed it in front of Meng Chanqing. You are the best pilots. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. we cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 82 Beyond Synchronicity. Xingshan, is what you just said true? When Sato asked this question, Heoji, Xingshan and Manuscript 03 were standing together on the largest lifting platform in the center of the base, heading towards the surface. Colonel Sato, do you believe Heoji has consciousness? Xingshan did not answer Sato directly, but asked the same question. Ha 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 ha. Sato thought for only a second, and understood what Xingshan meant. A mecha shouldn't ask such a superstitious question. Xingshan told a white lie. The red hurricane parasitized by the monster has no independent consciousness. It is a mecha that completely obeys the orders of the pilot. So what? Meaning originally exists because of human endowment. In the eyes of many people, mechas are just war weapons used to fight monsters. Even mechas with independent consciousness like Xingshan cannot be recognized by everyone. The same is true for the pilots. To a certain extent, they are weapons, not people, just like their own mechas. It doesn't matter whether the Red Hurricane really has self-awareness. As long as Meng Chanqing believes in this steel giant that has shared hardships with him, it has a soul. This is not idealism. I'm conscious myself. Crossing Shine himself is ironclad evidence. So whatever you say is right. After all, no one knows if you have any of the same kind. Sato Yu gradually put away his smile. It seems that I can't just treat you as a mecha. You actually use this kind of philosophical question to fool people. Even I was almost fooled by you. I'm a questioner, not an answerer. How can it be considered a lie? Crossing Shine implicitly admitted that Sato Yu's idea was right. Listening to the conversation between Sato Yu and Crossing Shine, Beiying silently opened the synchronization rate monitoring panel and fell into deep thought while looking at the 99% on it. In the past, for this kind of operation that required calling out a certain panel, she would either have to give a voice command or manually point it out on the control terminal. But now, as long as she has such an idea, everything will be satisfactory. Ever since Beiying helped Manuscript 03 get rid of Chasing Bunny, her synchronization rate with this mecha has risen from 95% to 99%. And Beiying has a hunch in her heart that, as long as she wants, this value can reach 100% at any time. It was also from then on that Beiying found that she and Manuscript 03 had achieved true synchronization in many aspects. As long as Beiying stood in the control position, she could perform many operations that the Iron Pilot needed to control manually with her mind alone. Not only that, Beiying's controllability of the mecha has also been qualitatively improved. Many actions that could not be achieved due to pulse transmission delay can now be done, as if this mecha is Beiying's real body. Even some actions that humans cannot complete and only mecha can do, Beiying can also control Manuscript 03 to achieve every time. At this time, Beiying only needs to stay where she is and perform the relevant pictures in her mind. All this seems to Beiying as if there is really someone living in her mind and reading her thoughts. Although she does not resist this feeling, she still hesitates whether to tell others about it, especially Crossing Shine, because she suspected that Manuscript 03 was also conscious. Beiying. Crossing Shine's shout suddenly brought Beiying back to reality. Did you hear what we just said? Only then did Beiying realize that they would soon reach the ground. What did you say? Beiying's face instantly flushed with shame. I will do a big upgrade after I go up, and I need you and Heoji to guard for a while, about 5 minutes. Yuzawa was not angry, but just skipped most of the details and briefly explained what he was going to do. Well, no problem. Beiying quickly agreed. When you return to the surface, you will face the monster face to face. You can't be so absent-minded. Sato Xiang saw through Beiying with one stroke. Is there something on your mind that you can't say? Sorry, it's not a very important matter. I shouldn't be distracted. Although Beiying said so, Sato Xiang's words still made Beiying decide to find a time to tell the story between himself and Manuscript 03. No need to apologize. Even Daozi would have things he doesn't want to tell me at his age, let alone you. Stay focused and cheer up. Sato Yu was very open-minded. System prompt. The central elevator is about to arrive on the surface. Please prepare yourself. Gudang. As the circular dome opened in a petal-like manner, the cold and lonely night sky immediately appeared above the three mechas. There was no bright moon hanging in the sky, nor were there bright and shining stars in the sky. There was only the pungent and cold night wind, and the endless ruins. No energy reaction detected, although the radars of the three mechas did not find any threats. Everyone's nerves remained tense, and they did not dare to be careless. According to Satoyu, there should be at least 10 mutated level 3 monsters entrenched in Blackhorn City. Why is there not one? Beiyang asked, while looking around the extremely tall buildings vigilantly. I don't know. I have never come out alone at night. That is no different from suicide. Satoyu held the same question. Don't worry about it for now. It's better to have no monsters than to have them. Xingshan, you can start upgrading. Yuzao had already opened the mall panel without Satoyu's reminder. The reason why he chose this time to upgrade was that Xingshan's strength was obviously not as strong as those monsters in the fourth line of defense islands. In addition, Xingshan now had no battle axe, all of his Lingyu elastic muscle units were scrapped, and one of his gloves was smashed by the red hurricane. It can be said that Xingshan's combat power was basically less than half of his peak period. Even though he had swallowed a spare mecha as a repair material, those low-grade alloys not only failed to completely repair the damage to Xingshan's body, but even the repaired armor parts were much worse than before in various indicators. Now Xingshan's overall strength is only slightly higher than that of an ordinary specialized 3rd generation mecha, and may even be inferior to Beiyang's Manuscript 03. The monsters and monster mechas encountered in the Blackhorn industrial base were just the appetizers of this beast-tide. Yuzao didn't dare to imagine how terrifying the enemies they would encounter if they pushed deeper. After they cleared all the monsters in the city, the three mechas would return to the underground base for a final repair and status check. Afterwards, the three mechas would march on foot in the direction of the beast-tide. If a battle occurred along the way, the damage to the mechas would definitely not be repaired. Considering all these reasons, Yuzao decided to give Crossing Cheyenne a complete upgrade. Chapter 83 Reborn. While receiving ammunition replenishment and body repair in the hangar, Yuzao had already picked out the items he wanted to exchange. After the third battle, Yuzao's available evolution points increased to 84,000 points. Independently killing the Ghost King parasitized by the heretic provided 30,000 points. The three mechas jointly encircled and suppressed the 4.5 level monster Demon Bat provided 23,000 points, and jointly killing the Red Hurricane parasitized by the mutant sea monster with Manuscript 03 provided 27,000 points, plus the remaining 4,000 points before. It was exactly 84,000 points. This is not a small number. If he only exchanged according to the previous consumption standards, Crossing Cheyenne could basically arm himself to the teeth. But Yuzao didn't plan to do this. Since he wanted to upgrade, he should take a long-term view, either directly jump to the next level, or exchange for some equipment modules that can continue to grow. After Yuzao and Meng Changqing had a fist bump, his machine soul level was once again upgraded, officially reaching level 3, which was enough to exchange for machine soul concrete, and a new function that Yuzao did not expect was opened, skeleton. According to the detailed description of the system, after the machine soul level reaches level 3, Yuzao can consume 50,000 evolution points to open the skeleton, allowing the mecha to completely get rid of the category of man-made objects and become a unique existence. The most obvious difference is that the body structure will be completely replaced by the skeleton, and all mechanical parts will be transformed into basic life units with activity similar to human cells and organs. In short, a mecha with a skeleton is equivalent to another life form based on mysterious materials, but it has obvious electrification and mechanization characteristics. In this life form, the mecha can still be repaired by humans mechanically, but the body itself also has the function of self-repair. Then I'll trouble you. After Yuzao said this, he confirmed the opening of the skeleton evolution process in the system. But the black fluid once again gushed out of Xingshan's power furnace like a spring, and in just a few seconds, Xingshan's entire fuselage was completely wrapped. But unlike before, This time Xingqian's body was completely dissolved. Is this normal? Sato Xiang watched Xingqian completely turned into a huge black sphere suspended in the air, and his heart was already in turmoil. I've never seen this before. This time even Beiyang became nervous, and the horror of this scene was even more shocking than the first time she saw the black cube deformed. The Mecha Xingqian, who was still chatting and laughing with them in the last second, has now completely turned into a ball with a radius of 5 meters. Beiyang suddenly remembered the scene before this expedition, when she asked Xingqian about the black cube. At that time, Xingqian only used the word secret to perfunctory her. Looking at the scene in front of her, Beiyang suddenly felt that it would be better for her not to know this secret. Should we go down and find an engineer first? Sato Xiang was already a little panicked. He felt that Xingqian's current appearance was definitely not normal. Wait a little longer. Beiyang's face was also quite ugly, but she believed that everything that was happening now should also be under Crossing Xian's control. I'm serious, let's go back first. Sato Xiang was even ready to cut the sphere at any time. I'm afraid it will explode in a while. Then we can't go back. Beiyang didn't know what she was answering. She had tried to call Crossing Xian on the private channel, but the other party didn't respond. If it weren't for the fact that the synesthesia between her and Crossing Xian had not disappeared, Beiyang almost concluded that Crossing Xian was dead. 30 seconds, no more. This is the maximum compromise that Sato Xiang can accept. Perhaps because he was deeply influenced by Zori culture since he was a child, he always felt that this strange looking sphere definitely has a destructive function such as self-destruction. Beiyang didn't reply, but she accepted Sato Xiang's suggestion in her heart. At this moment, although there was no threat shown on the radars of the two mechas, the tension of the three people was no less than the state of fighting a level 4 monster. Crash. Just as Sato was about to inform Beiyang that the time was up, the solidified sphere suddenly changed. The trunk, limbs, head. In the next half minute, the surging black fluid reconstructed a huge and exquisite skeleton. Then, to the extreme shock of Beiyang, Sato and Aozi, the huge one-piece skeleton actually grew grey muscles at a speed visible to the naked eye. Fuck. Are we watching the birth of a mecha or something? Sato couldn't believe his eyes. Can this still be considered a mecha? It's no different from a human. Maybe, this is his true form. Although Beiyang had already regarded Crossing Xian as a human, it was still too shocking to see Crossing Xian reshaped in this way that was infinitely close to life. What the hell is that? A power reactor? Sato raised his hand tremblingly and pointed to the suspended sphere in the center of the body. Damn, I can't watch it anymore. I feel like my soul is being sucked in. Unlike the completely solid and still big bowl before, this sphere suspended in the center of the skeleton is moving in an extremely magical way, while infinitely collapsing inwards. It continues to extend new boundaries out of thin air. In other words, this thing is not a sphere with a fixed shape at all, but its dynamic movement is maintaining a delicate balance, and the boundaries of birth always appear in the same position. Maybe that's his heart. Beiyang felt dizzy after just staring at it for a few seconds, and was forced to look away. I can't believe that guy's power reactor can become like this. When Satoru finished this sentence, this heart was completely covered by the newly grown muscles. The next second, this flesh and blood body finally stopped growing, and was covered by a layer of black substance similar to skin, making him look less scary. Then, the mechanical armor familiar to the three people appeared layer by layer on the outside of Xingqian's body, rearming this life form into a mecha. Is this the end? Satoru was slightly relieved when he saw that Crossing Xian had stopped changing. Probably, I guess. Beiyang was not sure either, because Crossing Xian still did not respond to any calls. Although Crossing Xian had returned to his mecha form, his appearance had also changed dramatically. The tough and angular lines were very futuristic, and the dark paint as black as the night and the stronger limbs than ordinary mechas made Crossing Xian more majestic. The round single eye was replaced with more oppressive dark red eyes, and the shape of the head was changed from a simple inverted trapezoid to a more design-conscious multifaceted square geometric body. Almost at the moment when the mecha opened its eyes again, the three heard the warning from Crossing Xian at the same time. The enemy is approaching. Chapter 84 Uninvited Guests. Where is it? Although Satoyu did not hear the alarm from the energy radar and did not see any monsters in sight, he immediately controlled Heyoji to enter a state of alert. In the 12 o'clock direction, the moving speed is not fast, but it is very close, about 800 meters away. Crossing Shine's energy radar also did not respond, but since he successfully evolved the skeleton, he has gained a sense of danger, based on biological instinct. I can't see the target. Are you sure there is an enemy? Beiyang also drove the manuscript 03 and took a fighting posture, and the two high-frequency hot swords suddenly lit up orange-red light. Sure. Yuzao believed in his perception. Although Crossing Shine insisted that there was an enemy approaching, neither Satoyu nor Beiyang saw anything. At the 12 o'clock direction in front of the three mechas is the most important main road in the city, with an extremely wide field of vision, but now there is nothing on this road. Could it be an invisible enemy? Then we can be considered to have won the jackpot. We have never seen such a thing before. Satoyu was skeptical about the information given by Crossing Shine. If we can't even detect it with the energy radar, it will be really troublesome. Should we take the initiative to attack? Beiyang said as he controlled manuscript 03 to unfold the wing armor on its back, ready to launch missiles at any time. As Beiyang expected, the system did not lock onto any unit. No, let it approach at a constant speed, and mislead it into thinking that we can't determine its position yet. Satoyu gave a better suggestion. It's best to kill it with one shot, otherwise it will be troublesome to run with its stealth characteristics. Okay. Beiyang decided to follow Satoyu's advice. As soon as Beiyang finished speaking, the scene in front of several people suddenly changed. In the direction that Crossing Shine said, the originally calm air suddenly became blurred and distorted. Then, everyone heard the sound of mechanical vibration. Boom. Boom. The next second, a battle-scarred mecha appeared out of thin air in front of everyone. Its fuselage reached an astonishing height of 90 meters, and its entire body was covered with minimalist one-piece armor, and its thick limbs looked full of power. Not only that, all the joints of this mecha are equipped with additional independent engines. At the connection between its lower limbs and torso, Yuzao also found the exposed balance device unique to the gyro stabilizer. However, none of this is more eye-catching than the power reactor. This guy just exposed the power reactor outside. It was the first time that Satoyu saw a mecha designed with this structure. He stared at the golden power reactor vigilantly. Just from the appearance, it was at least twice as large as the power reactor of an ordinary mecha. Match failed. Failed to find the corresponding information. Yuzao failed to find the information of this mecha in the database. The last time this happened was when he encountered the group of Omega-3 mechas that fell from the sky in the Silent Cemetery and saw the manuscript 03 of the White Shadow. In other words, since this mecha is not in the database, it can basically be determined that it was made by Omega. When are you going to open fire? The tall grey-white mecha stopped 200 meters away from the few people and sent a broadcast on the public channel in a hoarse voice that sounded extremely uncomfortable. Friendly forces? Although Beiyang asked this, manuscript 03's grip on the double swords did not loosen at all. Don't waste your time. If I wanted to kill you, I would have done it long ago. The mysterious pilot's tone sounded confident. From your accent, you must be from the states west of the Heen Nation. Satoyu also did not relax his vigilance and kept testing the other party. Not only did the database not find any information about your mecha, but it also did not find your identity as a pilot. Do you Heen people like to hide things so much? It's none of your business. I have helped you clear the monsters entrenched in this city. As a reward, you only need to help me maintain my mecha once. The mysterious pilot's attitude was quite tough, and he seemed to be unhappy with Satoyu's guess. What do you think our three mechas are doing here? Beiyang's tone also became unusually cold. Then you should say thank you to me. The mysterious pilot deliberately raised his voice. Little girl, you have no right to speak here. I'm only talking to the man with the Zori accent. Oh, then you have the wrong person. Here she has the bigger fist, and she has the final say. Satoyu slapped him back without hesitation. You can also tell me, but she is the one who makes the final decision. The mysterious pilot fell silent on the spot. The tall mecha even clenched his fist and almost made a sound. If you want to help, then we must at least know who is helping. Beiying restrained the urge to further stimulate the other party's emotions and took the initiative to make concessions. After all, the other party did clear the monsters in the entire city, and they were friendly forces, so there was no reason not to help. On the other hand, the other party was able to destroy so many monsters with only one person and one armor, which was definitely not a soft persimmon. I thought I met the same kind, but I thought too much. After hesitating for a while, the mysterious pilot's tone was no longer so strong. When are you going to put down your guns? We have no reason to put them down. Yuzao rejected the other party before Beiying and Sato Xiang opened their mouths. The reason why he said that was very simple in Yuzao's perception. The other party was emitting the same breath as the monster Mecha. If that was true, then the person talking to them now might not be a human at all. Hearing Crossing Shine's words, Beiying's pupils suddenly contracted, ready to control Manuscript 03 to launch an attack at any time. It's really interesting to hear this from your mouth. When you just came up from underground, your identification information was still Crossing Shine. The mysterious pilot became more and more excited. I saw everything that happened to you just now. Although I don't know how the Alliance could cultivate a monster like you, since even I exist, there is nothing to be surprised about. Don't change the subject. Report your Mecha information and pilot identity. Open the cockpit and let us see that you are a human. Yuzao was too lazy to continue to entangle with the other party. Every second they wasted now was very precious. You can see my abnormality? After a moment of silence, the mysterious pilot replied in a half-believing tone. It's incredible. Only then did Sato and Beiying completely believe Crossing Shine's judgment. There was indeed something strange about this Mecha and its pilot. What if I don't drive? When the mysterious pilot said this, the system alarm sounded in his cockpit instantly. You have been locked. Chapter 85 Under the Armor. 2 of the 3 Mecha monsters. I'm so damn unlucky. Just as the two sides were on the verge of a fight, the mysterious pilot suddenly cursed in the public channel. The next second, the 3 mechas received the information data sent by each other at the same time. Mecha code, Manuscript 07BV, body model, test type first generation Manuscript Mecha, driver, Iron Hand, body performance, Sunring restraint core power armor, height 90 meters, weight 17,700 tons, equipment module. 0BV bionic interaction system, Warhammer shock gauntlet, P2 split auxiliary power module, amber anti-reconnaissance type second liquid steel armor, Sunfire array beam cannon, flare aggregate super energy beam launcher, combat rating, sea level, 8,000 points. When everyone saw the data of this Mecha, they all fell into a brief mental stagnation, especially Yuzao. Only his system would display the data in the combat rating column 8,000 points. This is the highest value he has seen so far. Crossing Cheyenne looked up at the Manuscript 07BV, who was still standing there without moving, and was shocked and excited. Although the surface of this Mecha was covered with battle scars, Yuzao was very sure that the opponent's combat effectiveness had not decreased. If they really started fighting, even if Crossing Cheyenne had the advantage in numbers, it would surely be a situation where both sides would suffer losses. Sato, you didn't know what words to use to describe his current mood. Just by looking at these words that exceeded his scientific understanding, he knew that this Mecha should be a tough character that was more difficult to provoke than the Red Hurricane. Beiying was thinking the same thing at the moment, but unlike Crossing Cheyenne and Sato Yu, she was more concerned about the number of the other Mecha Manuscript 07BV. Even though Beiying didn't know what the letters and numbers in it meant, she guessed that the other Mecha in the Manuscript 03 she was driving were most likely from the same series. Are you satisfied with my business card? Seeing that the 3 mechas didn't speak or move for a while, Taishao roughly guessed the reaction of everyone. Even though Taishao's words were not pleasant to hear, his voluntary surrender of intelligence was a compromise. As a pilot, you only have a code name. Sato Yu's subtext was that he hoped the other party would provide more information to prove his identity. Sorry, I can't give it to you. Even if I want to, I don't have the corresponding authority. Taishao's tone was even a bit self-deprecating. Don't you have someone like me over there? Do you still need to ask for such a thing? Tai Xiao's words were obviously directed at Beiying and the manuscript 03 she was driving. Then open the cockpit and let us see what you look like. Since Tai Xiao had voluntarily surrendered the intelligence, Yu Zhao could be sure that the two sides would not go to war for the time being, but this did not affect Yu Zhao's desire to find out the reason why the other party exuded a hostile aura. I thought you would forget about this. Tai Xiao was a little disappointed. You can open the cabin to check the people. I know you think we are monster mechas, but you have to put away your weapons first. Okay, let your mecha raise both hands first and adjust the power reactor to the lowest power. Sato Yu immediately put forward the conditions. He couldn't be sure whether the manuscript 07BV had an autopilot system, nor did he know how long it would take for the mecha's weapons to start up at the fastest speed, so he could only ask the other party to do so in order to maximize the time it would take for the other party to launch a sudden attack. Deal. Tiquan agreed to Sato's request without hesitation, and manuscript 07BV immediately raised its hands, and the power reactor on its chest changed from golden to light yellow. Sato and Beiying also fulfilled their promises, put down their weapons, and cancelled the locks on various weapons. But Xingshan didn't. After possessing the skeleton, Xingshan's system has completely evolved to a point that humans cannot analyze, which means that no matter what he does, it will not be noticed by others. At this moment, the Chenglan gorilla turret group hidden under Xingshan's abdominal armor is still in a preheated state, and all 8 locking circles are aimed at the exposed power reactor of manuscript 07BV. Don't be afraid of 10,000, just be afraid of 1. But in the cockpit of manuscript 07BV, the system has lifted all alarms. Tiquan took a deep breath and started the guide out of the cabin program. Then, the spherical holographic cockpit followed the ejection channel inside the body, rising from the thick chest of the mecha to the head. As the armor on the top of the manuscript 07BV unfolded layer by layer, the honeycomb display crystals in the cockpit were all closed, revealing an external passage that was just big enough for one person to pass through. Click. Iron Hand, who was standing at the control position of the mecha, finally appeared in front of everyone. Don't move. Get down from the control position. Almost at the moment of seeing Iron Hand, Sato Yu subconsciously issued a warning in an extremely serious tone. At the same time, Heoji and manuscript 03 also raised their weapons and controlled the weapon system to directly lock onto the cockpit where Iron Hand was. Ha. I knew you would react like this. Iron Hand laughed loudly, as if he had expected it. Which do you think is faster, my beam cannon or your missiles? Colonel Sato, White Shadow, don't fire. Yu Zhao took the lead to stop the possibility of further escalation of the conflict, and then said to Tai Xiao, you'd better explain all this clearly. In fact, when Yu Zhao saw Tai Xiao's true appearance, he was the one who wanted to use force first. That's a long story. What appeared in front of everyone was Tai Xiao, who had half of his body mutated. Even though most of Tai Xiao's body was still wrapped in combat uniforms, his exposed face and hands and feet were no different from scaled monsters. In addition to the sharp claws and the green blood vessels visible under the skin, Tai Xiao's left eye has also completely turned golden, and you can even see fangs in the half-open mouth that is about to split to the ear. As you can see, half of my body has mutated. Although there were many times when I wanted to shoot myself in the head because of the pain, fortunately I still survived. At this point, Tai Xiao showed a creepy smile. I don't see any signs of monster parasitism on your mecha, and your cockpit is not damaged at all. How could it suddenly mutate? Beiying felt a vague uneasiness for some reason. You are the most sensitive little girl. Do you want to hear it? Tai Xiao's golden eyes stared at manuscript 03. His gaze seemed to penetrate the thick armor and directly met Beiying's red pupils. Watch your words, Tai Xiao. Sato, you obviously heard the bewitching meaning in it. How do you prove whether half of your brain has mutated? Ha. You and I are thinking the same thing. Tai Xiao suddenly laughed out loud, jumped down from the control position, and took off his helmet. The next second, he tore open his mutated scalp with his claws. I want to see it too. Chapter 86, The Betrayer. After crossing, Shion stretched out his hands to stop Beiying and Sato's iron. Everyone watched Tai Xiao screaming miserably but excitedly. Tai Xiao knelt on the ground with a thump, and his heterochromatic eyes stared at his reflection in the honeycomb crystal. Half of his bloody brain had turned brown, and from time to time, green pulses could be seen surging rapidly between the cerebral cortex. Fuck. Get out of my head. Get out. Get out. Tai Xiao's mental defense line completely collapsed at this moment. He covered his head with his hands, sometimes cursing loudly, and sometimes crying loudly. However, this was just Tai Xiao's wishful thinking. His wounds were healing at a speed visible to the naked eye. Haha. Ha ha ha. Finally, the exhausted Tai Xiao collapsed on the floor of the cockpit, and his crying in pain turned into a crazy laugh. Despite this, Heoji and Manuscript 03 still maintained a fighting posture ready to aim at any time. Kill me. After a long time, Tai Xiao spoke expressionlessly. I don't know if I'm still talking to you now. To be on the safe side, you'd better open fire before I change my mind. Is the change in your body continuing to spread like this? Yu Zhao did not answer Tai Xiao's request, but asked a question. You really don't give me a chance to breathe. Yes, you should get all the valuable information before I die. Tai Xiao's tone sounded very relaxed. Let me think. Since I recovered, half of my body has been like this. It should have been more than 48 hours now. At least I haven't completely turned into a monster, right? So there is no sign of spreading for the time being. Yu Zhao secretly breathed a sigh of relief. You also said it's temporary. No one knows if I will turn into a monster in the next second. Tai Xiao seemed to have accepted his fate. I don't have the courage to commit suicide. Damn it, if I don't talk for a while, you guys just open fire. The second question, which legion do you belong to? Why are you the only one acting alone? Although Yu Zhao once again avoided the other party's request, he was indeed prepared to open fire at any time. Golden Gate Legion, but we have an agreement with Omega. During special periods, Manuscript 07BV, and I must obey Omega's dispatch. In exchange, when Omega is not sending missions, I will be the pilot of the Golden Gate, and all maintenance costs of the Mecha will be borne by Omega. As for why I acted alone, it was because my teammates wanted to kill me, so I escaped and went in the opposite direction. It's that simple. Why did they want to kill you? Did they find that you had mutated? According to Satoyu's idea, unless Tai Xiao tells other people himself, it is impossible to find any abnormalities just from the appearance of the Mecha. I'm not stupid enough to tell them about this. Otherwise, even if I'm not killed on the spot, I will be dragged into the laboratory of Heen or Omega. Tai Xiao knew what Satoyu meant. Although I'm a Heen man, I must tell you that it is best not to have any expectations or trust in Heen. You are not the first Heen man to tell me this. Satoyu showed a complicated smile on his face. They have long wanted to take the Manuscript 07BV for themselves. I don't know how much research they have done on this Mecha in private. It's ridiculous that, since they already knew that this body might be dangerous, they didn't even tell me, the Iron Pilot. I'm just a guinea pig played by Heen and Omega. The rest of the mechas in the Legion are equipped with some special sensing devices that will sound an alarm when there is an abnormality between me and Manuscript 07BV. I guess the order they received is to eliminate me after hearing the alarm. But you and your Mecha are not dead. Yu Zhao had already guessed the ending in his heart. Sure enough, Tai Xiao's answer confirmed Yu Zhao's guess. Mechas are much easier to deal with than monsters. At this point, Tai Xiao's tone was actually a bit self-deprecating. When I was about to take action, I felt a little guilty, but now it's completely gone. After all, we are just weapons to deal with monsters. I don't want others to decide my life and death. Then do you still want us to take action now? Satoyu suddenly said this. No, but I don't want to become that disgusting thing. Maybe I can be more decent if I die. Seeing that Tai Xiao's emotions were gradually calming down, and his attitude in answering questions was very calm, Yu Zhao thought it was time to get to the point. Then the third question, do you know the reason for your mutation? When he asked this question, Tai Xiao rarely answered immediately. Are you sure you want to listen, especially the little girl over there? After a moment of silence, Tai Xiao finally spoke. I'm already half dead. There is nothing to hide, but if you listen, don't blame me when you are arrested by the Alliance in the future. Go ahead. Beiying responded before Yu Zhao. Tai Xiao slowly sat up from the ground, staring at the manuscript 03 driven by Beiying with one grey and one gold eye, and said in an almost pitying tone, "Do you know what you are doing? Neural synchronization with." Beiying's pupils contracted sharply. Omega has never developed a mecha that can be single piloted in the true sense from beginning to end. Never. This is just a cover. The more you synchronize with it, the deeper its impact on you, until one day you become one. Iron Hand squeezed his claws, and then, with a bang, it became a part of your body, and will live, and die with you forever. What the hell are you talking about? Sato, you felt that Iron Hand's mind might not be normal anymore. People who have never driven this kind of mecha can't understand it. From the moment you become its pilot, it has taken root in your brain. Iron Hand suddenly roared, and then tore off his combat uniform, revealing a shocking body. "Why do you think I raise my hands and let you slaughter me? Because I don't need these things to control it." But the power reactor of manuscript 07BV roared, and the entire mecha stretched out its arms along with Iron Hand, as if to hug something. At this time, Iron Hand was not only not wearing a helmet and combat uniform, but he was not even standing in the control position. Damn it. What the hell is going on? Sato, you couldn't help but curse out loud. He could no longer suppress the shock in his heart. What the hell does this have to do with you turning into a monster? Because the mecha I'm driving is a monster. Chapter 87, Behind the Truth. Bullshit. Sato, you firmly denied Tai Xiao's statement. Omega is stealing power from monsters that humans should not touch. Manuscript 07BV and I are the best proof. Tai Xiao's mood became more and more excited. I don't know what method they used to imprison this power in the mecha, but as long as you are infected with it, there is no way back. Colonel Sato, he doesn't have to lie. At the critical moment, Crossing Shard stood up to stop the quarrel between the two. Damn it, you guys talk to him. After hesitating for a long time, Sato, you controlled Heioji to put down the sword in his hand. Only the manuscript 03 driven by Beiying still held the two swords and stood there like a sculpture. Beiying, you don't have to believe everything Tai Xiao said. We will verify this matter with Omega later. Yuzao switched to the private channel, trying to calm Beiying's mood. Aren't you fine now? Don't think too much. In the cockpit of manuscript 03, Beiying's body was trembling slightly. She looked at the 99% displayed on the synchronization monitoring panel, and a chill rose in her heart. So the manuscript 03 that was syncing with her was also a monster? What about the memory she saw in chasing bunnies before? Beiying didn't dare to think further, because this monster was now entrenched in her mind, feeling every thought and idea of hers. Looking at the half-alienated Iron Hand, Beiying had countless questions for the other party to answer, but these words were just scattered at the throat. She had an urge to disconnect the synchronization right now and escape from the cockpit. Tick. At this moment, the familiar sound of water drops appeared in Beiying's ears again out of thin air. The next second, Beiying's heart suddenly slowed down by half a beat. She felt it. That was the fear of manuscript 03. How could it be? Beiying couldn't understand why manuscript 03 would feel fear. The uncontrollable curiosity made her subconsciously close her eyes and try to understand the other party's emotions. Manuscript 03 was afraid of losing Beiying. This fear was as simple as a child not wanting to be left alone by his parents. Manuscript 03 did not understand what Tai Xiao said at all. It simply responded to Beiying's thoughts. That's right, manuscript 03 is now a child who has no knowledge of the world. All its emotions come from biological instincts. I'm fine. After a long time, Yuzao finally heard Beiying's response. I still have questions for you. Beiying, who had basically regained her sanity, controlled manuscript 03 to retract the two high-frequency hot swords behind her back and straightened the fuselage to confront manuscript 07BV. Ask, little girl. Tai Xiao had already regarded Beiying as a pitiful person like himself. Can you feel the thoughts and emotions of manuscript 07BV? Has it tried to communicate with you? To Beiying's surprise, Tai Xiao did not answer her question immediately. Judging from his expression, he seemed a little surprised. You can ask such a question. Either I'm crazy, or you are crazy. Tai Xiao's face gradually became serious. I will assume that you are not describing your symptoms. I have never felt its thoughts and emotions, let alone such ridiculous behavior as communication. I can only feel its existence, that's all. I'm not crazy. Beiyang answered Taishao firmly. Ha. But I'd prefer to believe that you are crazy because you don't know what you are talking about. Taishao narrowed his eyes. Whether it is a mecha or a monster, it is not the same species as you. How can you understand its thoughts or even communicate with it? Why is it impossible? You can establish neural synchronization with it, which means that it is conscious. Even if you can't understand its thoughts, you can at least feel its. Impossible. Before Beiyang finished speaking, Taishao interrupted her directly. No matter what sufficient reasons you have, it is impossible for me. This is my personal experience. It is just a co-pilot without self-awareness to me. Then I have no problem. Beiyang knew that it was meaningless to continue this conversation, so he simply stopped here. Then let me ask the last question. Under what circumstances did you mutate? Were there any obvious signs? Yuzaro took over the topic. Synchronization rate. Hearing Taishao's answer, Beiyang concentrated again. When I first established synchronization with manuscript 07BV, my synchronization rate with it was already 85%. Taishao said slowly, as I drove the mecha more and more frequently, the synchronization rate between me and it began to gradually increase. In the third month, the synchronization rate increased to 86%. In the 6th month it was 89%, and now it is the 10th month, 94%. So the threshold of the mutation is 94%, right? Yuzaro made an inference, based on Taishao's words. No, before the mutation occurred, I and the other two mechas were just besieging a level 4 monster, and my synchronization rate also broke through to 95% in that battle. I was deeply impressed by these data. Now I think it's really ridiculous. I clearly had a vague sense of something wrong, but the rising synchronization rate made me more and more handy in driving the mecha, and also made me ignore the potential risks. At this time, Taishao no longer regretted it, and all he had was helplessness and emotion. What about your current synchronization rate? Beiyang suddenly asked before Yuzaro. 95%. It has not changed again. Taishao spread his hands. The synchronization rate is no longer meaningful to me. Manuscript 07BV has become my second body. As long as it and I do not exceed a certain fixed range, I can control it, as if I were standing in the control position. Maybe this is what Omega wants. When Yuzaro thought of Omega's style, Yuan Zhen's smiling face emerged in his mind. Rather than saying that Yuan Zhen is an unparalleled genius in the field of scientific research, Yuzaro would rather call her a terrible manipulator who always hides her true purpose behind her smile. Thanks to them, I now don't need an energy radar to sense the existence of monsters. Perhaps it's because I have become one of their kind. Taishao's eyes flashed with hatred. I have no problem now. Yuzaro has already obtained all the information he wanted to know, but I have to tell you bad news. Given your situation, we may not be able to maintain your mecha. Why? Do you think I'm a traitor who killed my own army, or do you simply think I'm an alien? Taishao seemed to have expected this result, but after he said all the words in his heart, he felt a lot more relaxed. Neither. It's just because we are right under our feet, the Omega branch. Chapter 88. Distinguishing Public and Private Affairs. Damn it, why didn't you tell me earlier? Taishao's face suddenly turned like a dampened moldy paper. We didn't know you were in this situation either. In fact, when Yuzaro saw Taishao's mutated body, he knew that this deal was doomed to fail. As long as Taishao dared to drive the Mecha underground, Omega's group would never let him go. I should go. When Taishao closed the cockpit again, Beiyang felt a little regretful in her heart. After all, this was the only pilot she had seen since she changed her mecha. Yuzaro also felt a little guilty. Not only did he fail to meet Taishao's needs, he even obtained a lot of confidential information and intelligence from the other party. Thank you. What? Just as the two sides were about to part, Yuzaro suddenly heard Taishao's thanks. I'm now the most wanted criminal in the Alliance. You are helping me by letting me go. Taishao's tone was full of relief. I'm curious about where you can go. Sato Yu, who had been silent, finally spoke up. Don't get me wrong, I don't mean to attack you. I just want to know how you can hide in such a big mecha. Satoru's words also aroused Yuzao's interest because it reminded him of the first time he fought in the Black Sky. At that time, Crossing Shine was still a first generation mecha with low combat effectiveness. Rather than being the only hope of the base, it was better to say that it was a disposable consumable. In the case of a huge disparity in strength, Yuzao's best choice was actually to escape rather than to fight. But Yuzao at that time encountered the same problem as Taishao now. How could he escape? The location of the Black Sky base is not a desolate wilderness, not to mention that there are maintenance personnel working in shifts 24 hours a day in the hangar. Even if he was lucky enough to escape from the base, it wouldn't take long for the Alliance to send a mecha that crushes Crossing Shine's performance to arrest him. By then, he won't even have time to open the Goldfinger and will be sent to the Omega headquarters, where Yuan Zhen will tear it apart and become a precious research object. What if he doesn't choose to fight when the monster attacks? That might lead to his death even faster. At that time, there was only one mecha, Xingqian, in the Black Sky. The order for Beiyang to drive Xingqian into battle was also issued by General Chen himself. If Yuzao forcibly seized control and refused to fight, the entire base would collapse even faster. The monster would not reason with him. If he said he would tear you into pieces, he would definitely not leave you with a complete body. Therefore, Yuzao's only option with a chance of survival was to fight until reinforcement arrived at the battlefield. If he had to say what choice he had, it was to act with his own will in the battle instead of letting Beiyang control him. But there was a price to pay for doing so. Seizing control meant consuming more unnecessary computing power, which gave the monster an opportunity to take advantage of. As for the reason why he was able to survive in the end, it must be inseparable from the power furnace given by the Goldfinger and the kindness of the Black Sky Legion. If Xingqian was a mecha of the Golden Gate, he would have been taken away by Heen's people to be dismantled and recycled on the spot, or sent to Omega's men for a search. As for everything that happened in the Silent Cemetery and the positioning of Crossing Shine's identity at the post-war meeting, they can all be seen as the result of Crossing Shine and humans using each other and compromising. But Taishao's situation is much worse than Yuzao's. He is affiliated with the Golden Gate Corps of Heen, driving the Manuscript 07BV developed by Omega. He was forced to kill his teammates on the battlefield, and his body also underwent a temporary irreversible mutation. After thinking from his perspective, the only bargaining chips Yuzao could think of were the powerful combat power of the Manuscript 07BV and the research value of Taishao's own condition. Can these two things really threaten the Alliance and Omega? Omega alone has no idea how many cards it has. Take one step at a time. I'll go wherever there's no one. It's that simple. Taishao's answer was both unexpected and reasonable. If you really want to hide, abandoning the mecha might be a good choice. Satoru gave Taishao some advice. Although it is not easy for you to avoid the Alliance's pursuit in your current state, it is much better than driving a mecha that is dozens of meters long. I still have the strength to fight when I drive the mecha, but I'm nothing without it. Taishao's attitude was very firm. More importantly, no matter whether I will completely turn into a monster in the future, as long as I'm still standing in the cockpit, I will still be an Iron Pilot. Still an Iron Pilot. Just think it over. Although his suggestion was not adopted, it was a good thing for Satoru to see that he had regained his spirits. Goodbye, guys. See you again, if we are lucky. After saying goodbye, Taishao drove the Manuscript 07BV and turned on the optical camouflage again, turned around and drove away towards the coastline. Just let him go like this? Yuzao asked Satoru tentatively. Although Satoru quickly established a comradeship with Beiyang and Crossing Shine, he was still a member of the United Front Corps after all. In addition, Satoru seemed to have a good relationship with Dr. Mecha of Omega, so Yuzao had to be cautious. Ever since he was betrayed in the Silent Cemetery and the post-war meeting, it was difficult for Yuzao to completely trust others. As a member of the Alliance, I really shouldn't let him go. His behavior has crossed the bottom line. He is undoubtedly a traitor and deserter. But as a pilot, I have no reason not to let him go. What Heen and Omega did was even worse than Iron Hands. As he said, in the eyes of some people, we pilots and mechas are just weapons. Although it is the duty of a soldier to obey orders, the word soldier also has people. People are not machines that simply obey orders and execute them. We must learn to distinguish right from wrong and think independently. If we arrest him here today, will someone come to arrest us in the future? Iron Hand did nothing wrong. He is just a victim of fate. We have no right to deprive him of the power to resist fate. Did anyone say that you are suitable to be a leader? After hearing Sato Ziyang's serious explanation, Yuzao finally breathed a sigh of relief. He was basically sure that Sato Ziyang would not be the kind of person who would stab his teammates at a critical moment. But he did express his desire to stab Crossing Cheyenne many times. Of course, don't you know that I was a candidate for the commander of the United Front Corps before? Sato Ziyang put on his usual relaxed attitude, and there was even a little pride in his tone. Then why didn't you become the commander in the end? Beiying said this not to provoke. In fact, she asked this because she admired Sato Ziyang. People are not machines that simply follow orders and execute them. It can be said that it was this sentence that made Beiying see a leader image that is completely different from General Chen. You asked so directly. Sato Ziyang almost choked on his own saliva. It's okay to tell you, it's not that I can't compete with others, I gave up. Why? Yuzao found it harder to understand this than Beiying. Because I have a little one who needs to be taken care of. Sato Ziyang smiled and looked at Aozi beside him. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 89. Forging an Axe from Bone. After Taishao drove the manuscript 07BV away, Sato Yu and his team still launched a large-scale search of Blackhorn City. After all, Taishao only said that all monsters had been cleared, and the crowd had not confirmed it, so they didn't know if there would be any fish that slipped through the net. However, this search was carried out in batches. After confirming the safety of the central city, Heoji and Manuscript 03 gradually advanced from the inside to the outside from the east and west sides. Only Crossing Cheyenne stayed in the central city first. He was originally going to continue to exchange for other equipment after the skeleton evolution was completed, but the appearance of Taishao forcibly interrupted this process. In order to avoid being discovered by Taishao, Yuzao could only wait until the matter was over before continuing to upgrade. Excluding the 50,000 points consumed by the skeleton evolution, Yuzao now has a total of 34,000 evolution points at his disposal, which is just enough for him to exchange for an equipment he had already set his eyes on. Product name: Broken Life. Product description: a long-handled giant axe made of the body skeleton, and the axe blade is a plasma formed by pure energy confinement, both of which are bound to the strength of the body itself. After the weapon causes effective damage to biological enemies, it will capture energy. The captured energy can be used to accelerate the repair of the body, increase the power of the body, or strengthen the axe attack. Note: this product must be purchased after the body evolves a skeleton. The properties of the axe handle are consistent with the body. If the axe handle is damaged, it will consume part of the body's skeleton to recast. As an energy product, the axe blade must occupy 30% of the body's maximum power each time it is lit. If the body cannot continue to provide energy, the axe blade will go out. Price: 30,000. A typical growth equipment. Just from the description, this equipment not only does not have to worry about damage, but it can even become stronger as Crossing Cheyenne grows. On the other hand, the axe blade condensed by pure energy can also avoid the decrease in strength caused by wear. In addition to the considerable consumption of the body when using this weapon, it can almost be regarded as the most cost-effective type of equipment. Buy. Exchange successful. Thank you for your patronage. Doesn't this thing need to be delivered? Just when Yuzao was puzzled, a crisp sound suddenly came from his body. Is it a skeleton? Yuzao could feel that part of his body's skeleton seemed to be dissolving. Although this did not change the external structure of the body, he still felt a long-lost feeling of weakness. Then, black fluid began to seep out from Xingshan's external armor and slowly gathered in Xingshan's right hand. They gradually condensed into 3 entangled spirals, and finally turned into an axe handle that was almost as tall as Xingshan. Perhaps because it was the first time, the entire axe handle condensation process seemed a bit slow, taking a full minute. If this time is fixed, then once the battle axe is damaged in battle, it will be almost impossible for Xingqian to recast it on the spot without the cover of his teammates. And because the axe handle is directly transformed from Xingqian's body skeleton, every time the battle axe is recast, Xingqian will fall into a weak state for a period of time. Thinking of this, Yu Zhao forced all the energy in his body to accelerate the rebirth of the skeleton. 1 minute, the same time as it takes to recast the axe handle. Yu Zhao, who was in the consciousness space, actually felt a little tired. Is it because Crossing Shan has become a living being? Although this is not a good thing from a practical point of view, whether it is weakness or fatigue, it makes Yu Zhao relive the feeling that only humans can have. But, with a low vibration sound, a red axe blade suddenly lit up, which was particularly bright and shocking in the dark night. At the same time, Crossing Shan's power also dropped sharply by 30%. It felt like someone had inserted an extra tube into Yu Zhao's heart to divert the blood. The good news is that this sudden feeling of weakness only lasted for less than a second and disappeared without a trace. So light. It was not until Yu Zhao took the giant axe and swung it in the air a few times that he was surprised to find that the giant axe was as light as a longer wooden stick. During the whole swinging process, Yu Zhao even felt that the resistance caused by the air was the biggest obstacle to preventing Crossing Shan from exerting force. Can this weight really be used in combat? With a half-believing and half-doubting mentality, Yu Zhao decided to use the half-collapsed building next to him for an experiment. There was another low sound, and a dazzling red cut instantly appeared on the broken wall. Boom. The height of the building dropped by another third. Yu Zhao fell into silence because he suddenly felt that the weapon in his hand seemed to be a bit like a lightsaber in a certain film and television work in his previous life. For some reason, Yu Zhao suddenly felt a sense of pleasure that his dream had come true, so he swung the giant axe in the air for several circles. So cool. Listening to the pleasant sound of the plasma axe blade in the air, Yu Zhao almost wanted to hit something with 2 more axes. Which man could refuse such a cool weapon? However, considering that these damaged buildings also had a certain recycling value, he still resisted this slightly childish impulse. Now Crossing Shan only has 5 equipment modules: the Broken Life Battle Axe, the Dragon Gorilla Turret Set, the Black Armor, the Damaged Metal Chain Sword, and the only remaining Strong Attack Impact Glove. The Chain Sword is a good thing. I have to find a chance to see if I can get some giant strength metal to repair it. The Strong Attack Impact Glove is temporarily useless. After repeated consideration, Yu Zhao decided to use the newly acquired recycling function to convert the gloves and the old equipment in the power furnace into evolution points. The reason for doing so is that the strength of these equipment is no longer enough to fight against the monsters in the 4th line of defense islands. If I had known earlier, I should have bought some expensive equipment. At least it wouldn't be worn out so quickly. When Yu Zhao thought about the fact that there was not even a dreg left of his Lingyu elastic muscle unit, he felt like someone had stabbed his heart with a knife. However, Yu Zhao thought about it again and found that there were not many equipment to buy at that time. Higher level equipment like Broken Life can only be exchanged after having a skeleton. After going around in circles, he still suffered from the level of the machine soul. Defeating the Red Hurricane only resulted in a point reward, but no equipment module, which means that the mutant siren is not a unique monster. If there was no signal blocking here, I should have broadcast the whole process live for the whole world to watch my performance. Crossing Shan single-handedly dealt with the Ghost King, who was parasitized by the heretic, but he was the only one present during the whole process, which meant that he didn't gain any reputation at all, which was a huge loss. At this moment, Beiying's voice suddenly came from Yu Zhao's communication channel. Colonel Sato, Crossing Shan, there's something going on here. Chapter 90 Biological Weapons. This is the first time I've seen such a small monster. Satohiro frowned. It looks like it should be a type 3 monster, not the same level as those type 2 monsters that can only grow this big. After Beiying found this place, she immediately drove the manuscript 03 back to the communication range and sent a request to Crossing Shan and Heoji to gather. This is already the outermost area of the city. The ruins of the broken walls have been left behind by the three mechas by at least 5,000 meters. In the distance, Duyu Mountain still spews out magma and sparks from time to time. The pungent smell of sulfur is caught by the night wind along with the hot air and gradually cools down as it drifts away. Several winding rivers of magma flow down the majestic mountain, extending on the ground like the arteries of this planet, forming a suffocating picture of hell. And one of the tributaries is right in front of the three mechas. Is it the cub of those monsters? Beiying looked at the monster that he dragged out of the crimson magma and felt an indescribable awkwardness in his heart. This monster is only 10 meters long. From its appearance, it should be a typical level 3 monster, green rat. Unlike those green rats that are 50 meters long, this little monster's tail has not grown yet. Its two gray eyeballs also occupy 1/3 of the space on its head. Its jagged young teeth look like they can't bite anything. Who knows? I thought these beasts didn't reproduce at all. They all jumped out of thin air. Sato Xiang was no less shocked than Beiying. They all came to this planet through the wormhole, but since the wormhole was destroyed, these monsters are likely to have been bred from Leviathan. Yu Zhao deliberately explained the situation. After all, there was no way to get in touch with the outside world here, and Sato Xiang didn't know what was happening outside. Your acting commander has told me about this. Sato Yu said that he was not completely ignorant. So, Leviathan is simply a war factory responsible for producing monsters, but if all monsters are made from it, why are there monster cubs here? Shouldn't they be released after they grow up? And we don't know how long the monster's growth cycle is. This cub doesn't look like it was born from Leviathan. I haven't heard of any monsters that are so small that have emerged from the infinite sea. Sato Yu has been driving a mecha for so many years, and this is the first time he has seen such a situation. Don't you think it looks a bit like those mutant monsters? Just as Beiying and Sato Yu were thinking hard, Yu Zhao suddenly discovered that this monster cub seemed to be related to the mutant monsters he had seen before. These level 3 monsters are obviously the same type that have appeared before, but their energy levels have generally risen by half a level, and their skin color is surprisingly uniform, and each of them has veins similar to this magma color. Is this considered a new round of evolution? After hearing what Yu Zhao said, Beiying also noticed that this little monster also had this kind of characteristics. No, the beast type that landed at the beginning didn't look like this at all. Sato Xiang's words instantly interrupted Yu Zhao and Beiying's thoughts. If I remember correctly, these monsters only appeared after Duyu Mountain began to erupt. At that time, I was wondering why there were more monsters, and whether the beast tide was still continuing. Sato Xiang tried to dig out the details in his memory. Maybe they crawled out of Duyu Mountain. Yu Zhao made a very bold guess. I really can't think of where else they can come from. The Alliance has not observed any monsters continuing to land from the sea. The three mechas looked at Duyu Mountain, which was still active in the distance. If you had said this to me a day ago, I would have definitely thought you should have your brain checked. Sato Yu swallowed his saliva, but now, no matter what you say to me, I will hesitate for a moment, and then seriously think about whether this possibility is really possible. If this is true, then isn't this the most dangerous place? Beiying quickly realized the seriousness of the problem. There is no time to continue discussing here. Let's take this monster down first and let Omega and others study it. Sato Yu made a decisive decision. 15 minutes later, at the Blackhorn Underground Industrial Base, when three mechas came down from above the city and threw the dead little monster back to the research site, people began to discuss it again. What's up with that little monster? It doesn't look like a Type 2nd monster. Didn't you notice that the little monster looks a lot like a green mouse? No way. Doesn't that mean these monsters are also bred? Wait, didn't you notice that Crossing Cheyenne has changed? I haven't seen that black long stick before. It looks like it can be equipped with a sharp blade on the end of the stick. I felt something strange when I passed by Crossing Cheyenne just now. I felt that his walking posture was too smooth. He didn't look like a mecha. It's no use for us to guess here. Let's go back and ask the brothers Inzu and Skankiang. However, what people don't know is that Yu Zhao and his group have already answered similar questions. But the questions they were asked are much trickier than what people discuss. Sure enough, everything can be pushed to Crossing Cheyenne. The more unreasonable things are, the more reasonable they seem to be on you. Sato Zyang sighed in a low voice. Try not to brush things off in this way, if you can explain them normally. Without too much evidence, Omega will definitely conduct a private investigation. If they find any clues, we will all be in trouble. Yuzao said this for his own consideration. Because just when the four of them took their supplies and prepared to set off, someone asked about something they had overlooked before. Don't your 3 mechas need maintenance and inspection? Although you are clearing out some low threat level 3 monsters, you still have to replenish them before you go. Yuzao clearly remembered his awkward reaction when he was stunned on the spot. The monsters were not killed by the 4 of them at all, so of course the mechas had no damage. At the critical moment, it was still Satoyu who stood up and directly attributed all the credit to Crossing Shine, claiming that these monsters were killed by Crossing Shine after the upgrade, in order to minimize the damage to Heioji and Manuscript 03. This explanation full of loopholes would never be accepted by the smart people like Omega under normal circumstances, but when they saw the axe blade suddenly ignited in Crossing Shine's hand, they forced themselves to resist the urge to continue asking questions. If Crossing Shine didn't look like someone who was not easy to deal with, this group of people would probably keep his battle axe and study it carefully. Of course, we were not thoughtful this time. By the way, did you bring all the supplies? Sato Zyang's question was actually mainly directed at Beiying. After all, Crossing Shine didn't look like he needed food or drink. After getting Beiying's affirmative answer, the 3 mechas once again boarded the lift platform to the surface. Watching the base disappear little by little in his eyes, Sato Zyang murmured in a voice that only he could hear, "I hope we can come back alive." Chapter 91 Loving Gods. Boom. Boom. The scattered dust covered the cold floor. The exposed steel bars struggled to stick out from the broken concrete wall, exuding a desperate and dull silence. The overturned furniture lay in a mess in the crowded room. The light tubes hung by wires slowly rotated in the air. The sharp metal pieces kept cutting the rubber sleeves around the wires in the process, making disturbing sounds. Boom. Boom. The old woman covered her dry mouth with her wrinkled hands. The corners of her swollen eyes were full of dirt and tears. Her legs were covered with a cheap synthetic textile blanket, which was also covered with sand and dust. The wheelchair she was sitting in was hidden behind the broken wall. Because the room was too cramped, this was the only visual blind spot. Boom. The hideous monster stopped. A blood-red eyeball with a diameter of about 3 meters slowly moved to the large hole, where the air was leaking, constantly peeking at everything in the room. The gurgling sound made by the eyeball when it turned was enough to make people's hair stand on end. Suddenly, all the sounds in the old woman's ears disappeared. When she trembled and looked at the big hole beside her with her peripheral vision, the sight that was enough to cover the entire room was staring at her. Roar. Bang bang bang. As the hot bullets shot through the monster's head, its roar turned into a shrill scream. The beast's blood, which exuded a pungent smell, instantly splashed on the furniture at the old woman's feet like paint. The shaking building made her hurriedly grab the wheel bone with her hands to prevent herself and the wheelchair from being thrown to the ground. Boom. The monster's huge body fell to the ground, and its head was already a bloody mess. Target has been killed, although the system has popped up a kill prompt. The dragon-riding gorilla turret group in Xingshan's abdomen is still on standby at any time. 6 hours have passed since the 3 mechas left Blackhorn City, and the sun has once again risen from the distant horizon, illuminating this cruel and desolate land. In the first half of the journey, except for the corpses of monsters and various building wreckages, the 3 mechas did not encounter any danger. Judging from the wounds on the corpses of these monsters, they had not died for more than 24 hours, so Yuzao speculated that they should be advancing along the route that Taishao had taken. However, all this changed after half of the journey. I don't know if it was because Taishao chose a more remote and hidden route. Yuzao and his team did not see any monsters that died within 48 hours in the second half of the journey. Instead, the Mecha wreckage increased. Up to now, Yuzao and his team have encountered 7 monster attacks. Although they are all mutated level 3 monsters, such a large number of attacks has clearly shown the degree of danger in the rear area. Be careful. Just when we entered this urban area, my energy radar flashed a high level threat target. Satoyu warned everyone while driving the hero to vigilantly scan the mountains outside the town. The place where everyone is currently located is a town called Okioka County. Because of its geographical location between the two largest metropolitan areas in Zori Country and the surrounding mountains, no urban agglomeration has been willing to include it in its jurisdiction. If it were not for the tourism industry in Black Rock Canyon, the local economy of this small town would have collapsed long ago. It is precisely because of the small development space and the remote geographical location that the young population of Okanagan County is constantly losing. Now more than half of the people who remain here are middle-aged and elderly people over the age of 50. There are many towns in Zori Country with similar situations. They cannot be annexed by the economically prosperous metropolitan areas, so they can only rely on the funding of the central political body to maintain the most basic operation, watching the population disappear bit by bit, and finally disappearing completely from the map and becoming part of the historical record. The road here is too narrow, we can't move side by side. Beiying, who was at the end of the team, frowned. If a group fight occurs, we can only ignore the reconstruction cost first. Let's fight when it's time. If everyone is dead, what's the point of keeping these buildings? Sato Ziyang affirmed Beiying's idea. Pay attention to the surrounding mountains. It will take us less than 10 minutes to cross Chang'an County. If there are any monsters hiding, they will definitely not be in the city. If a battle occurs, follow the previous plan. Let me fight alone. You should save your strength as much as possible. Yuzao said as he walked towards the place where the monster fell. I'll check the building that the monster just looked at. Maybe there is something strange. Sure enough, when crossing, Cheyenne walked in front of the dilapidated building. He heard the voice of the old woman. It was a heart-wrenching cry. The dirty white hair covered her face along the old woman's hunched back, and the turbid tears fell on the blanket in large drops, wetting the extremely dry sand and dust. But not long after, the old woman's eyes were like dried up springs, and she could no longer squeeze out a tear. Grandma, don't be afraid, we are here to protect you. Satoyu quickly drove Heioi to the front of the building and tried to communicate with the old woman in the Japanese language that Yuzao and Beiying could not understand. It's very dangerous here. You can take refuge in my Mecha cockpit first. In fact, although Yuzao and Beiying could not speak Japanese, their Mecha systems both had real-time translation functions. This function can not only convert the words spoken by the other party into a language that the pilot can understand, but also allow the words spoken by the pilot to be converted into the language used by the other party in real time, but the voice will become the default voice of the system, which sounds a bit mechanical and cold. However, this function cannot be used within the Watcher Alliance, because the training for joining the Watcher Alliance includes courses related to the common language. If you can't learn it, you are not qualified to become a member of the Watcher Alliance. Beiying heard that the alliance had argued for a period of time for the common language when it was still in the preparatory stage. In the end, it was because Yuan Zhen, one of the founders of Omega, advocated the use of Kan Mandarin that this controversial issue was resolved. After all, she is the chief designer of the Mobile Llama plan. In terms of discourse power, few people in the alliance are more important than her. Are the robots you drive, those robots that can defeat monsters on TV? The old woman turned her wheelchair with difficulty and looked up at the tall hero with an almost humble look. Yes, Grandma, please retreat to the door first. I need to demolish the wall first, otherwise I can't reach my hands in. Satoyu's tone was very gentle, full of respect for the elderly, and as patient as coaxing a child. But the old woman did not do what Satoyu said. Please, save my grandson. The old woman put her hands together and bent down to everyone, as if praying to God. Chapter 92, Race Against Time. Grandma, don't worry. The building is about to collapse. Please retreat to the door first. If you have anything to say, you can tell us in detail after entering our cockpit. Sato Ziyang was telling the truth. From the outside, there was a huge crack on the wall of the apartment building that ran through the inside and outside. I can't go with you. My grandson will definitely come back. What should I do if he can't see me? Although the old woman's expression was full of pleading, she never pushed the wheelchair under her. Then Grandma, please tell us first, what is your grandson's name, and where can we find him? Seeing the old woman's firm attitude, Sato Zayang skipped this question. My grandson is Ichiro Sugawara. He is 12 years old. He said he wants to go to the shelter to find someone to help. The old woman became excited when she heard that Sato you wanted to help. He is not tall. There is a crescent-shaped scar on his forehead. He wore a green sweater and a red scarf when he went out. When did he go out? When Sato you heard the word shelter, a rather bad thought flashed through his mind. Last night. He went out last night. Although the old woman's voice was very hoarse, her eyes became very bright. Grandma, how about this? We help you find Ichiro, but you also have to enter our cockpit. Sato you said slowly, it's not safe to stay here now. If something happens to you, Ichiro will be so sad. He knew that the old woman regarded her grandson as more important than her own life. If he simply told her that staying here would be in danger, it would not be possible to shake her determination to wait for her grandson. Only by emphasizing that Ichiro would be sad because of her accident could this stubborn old woman really value her life. Then, what if Ichiro can't find me? Sure enough, the old woman hesitated when she heard Ichiro will be sad. Don't worry, Grandma, you come into the cockpit first and follow us to find Ichiro. We have 3 robots here. Leave one here to wait, so we won't be afraid that Ichiro won't be found. Sato Zayang seized the opportunity to come up with a best of both worlds plan. Is what you said true? The old woman thought for a long time, her wrinkled hands repeatedly stroking the rough blanket, and then hesitantly asked Sato Zayang for confirmation. This cautious but expectant attitude made even Yuzayo feel a little bit sorry. We won't lie to you, Grandma. Maybe Ichiro is waiting for you to find him. Sato Zayang's tone seemed full of confidence and affirmation. Okay. The old woman finally made up her mind, and while agreeing to Sato Zayang, she was ready to turn the somewhat worn wheelchair under her. At this moment, Beiying suddenly spoke in the cold voice of the system. Grandma, let me help you. Yuzayo seemed to have telepathy and stretched Crossing Shine's hand to the head of Manuscript 03 so that Beiying, who had just left the cockpit, sat on Crossing Shine's finger. Then, Crossing Shine put his index finger into the hole and sent Beiying into the house. So, in the joy of the old woman, Beiying successfully pushed her safely to the corridor outside the door. Scanning completed. All force support points have been marked. As a large area of red and blue guide points appeared in Sato's holographic perspective, he controlled Heioji to imitate Crossing Shine and put his finger into the hole. Crash. The damaged wall was like a damp biscuit, and Heioji easily ejected it out of the building with his fingers like cleaning dust. After accurately avoiding the support points that could cause the building to collapse further, Heioji quickly cleared a space large enough to put down the entire steel giant palm, and also swept away the obstacles piled up on the floor of the room. Okay, come on up. Hearing Satakshin's words, Beiying pushed the wheelchair back to the room. After using half of the wardrobe as a pad, the two successfully boarded Heioji's palm and entered the cockpit, where Satakshin and Daozi were. Looking at the holographic interface floating in the air and the fully functioning mechanical devices in the cabin, the old woman was shocked and speechless. However, in Beiying's eyes, Heioji's cockpit looked a bit crowded and messy after driving Xingshan and Manuscript 03 respectively. She could see that this was an old cockpit that had been modified. In addition to the overall grey basic structure, there are also many silver metal parts that are added, mainly including the driver's fixator, manual control terminal, semi-open head-up display, and emergency ejection valve. What Beiying was most concerned about was the fixator and sensor device used by Daozi. Just from the height, it was obvious that this was specially made for her. After noticing that Beiying was observing her, Daozi immediately showed a well-behaved smile. This made Beiying blush unconsciously. Colonel Sato, I will go back to my mecha first. After all, it is not safe here. Beiying first pushed the old woman to the side of the temporary fixator, adjusted the length and tightness of the rope, and made sure that the wheelchair and the person would not shake during the movement of the mecha before leaving the cockpit of Heioji. Before leaving, Beiying did not forget to wave to Daozi. Grandma, do you know where the shelter Ichiro went to? Sato Zayang asked, while untying the fixator on his body, and walked to the location of the old woman. Where is it? Let me think. The old woman stopped talking suddenly, as if she was desperately searching for something from her memory. It's okay, Grandma. Take your time to think about it. Don't rush. The elderly are the most forgetful group, and Sato Zayang is very patient about this. But the next second, Sato Zayang frowned when he walked in front of the old woman. Grandma, when was the last time you ate? Looking at the old woman's pale face and chapped lips, Sato Zayang immediately reached out to touch her pulse. Extremely weak. Realizing the problem, Sato Zayang rushed to the storage compartment in a few steps without waiting for the old woman to answer the question, and took out a bottle of water and a bag of instant nutritious meals. At the same time, the old woman's tense nerves seemed to be unable to hold on, and her heavy eyelids seemed to be about to close in the next second. Snap. After Sato Zayang slapped the designated position on the bag vigorously, the instant meal began to heat up in the bag by itself. Sato Zayang did not waste this waiting time, and quickly unscrewed the water bottle to feed the old woman a little bit of water. Grandma, Ichiro is waiting for you in the shelter. You can't fall asleep. Sato's tone was like coaxing a child, but his expression was extremely anxious. Ichiro, he is waiting for me at Junction Street. Sato's words hit the old woman's soft spot on the spot, and her originally scattered pupils once again showed a little light. Come on, let's eat first. Ichiro specifically told me to make sure you finish your meal. Sato knew very well that he was now fighting the god of death for the old woman's life. Chapter 93. Nothing. Satoshi only fed her 100 milliliters of water and stopped. According to his inference, the old woman had not taken in any food or water for at least 48 hours. This might be bearable for a healthy young person, but it is very dangerous for an elderly person like the old woman who is obviously malnourished. If a person has not eaten for a long time, he must not eat too much food at one time in a short period of time. Because the gastrointestinal function is in an emptying state for a long time, the digestion and absorption abilities are greatly weakened. Once you eat too much at this time, it is not only easy to have diarrhea, but also damage the gastrointestinal mucosa and cause acute gastric dilatation. In severe cases, there may even be gastric rupture. On the other hand, long-term hunger can also cause the body's acid-base and iron balance to be unbalanced. At this time, you must not take in a lot of protein, such as coarse grains and fruits and vegetables containing magnesium and acid. You can only eat a small amount of starch and carb and water, eat small meals frequently, and slowly increase the amount of food. Grandma, do you still remember what Ichiro likes to eat the most? Satoshi kept chatting with the old woman about her grandson, while pouring the nutritious meal into the lunchbox. The bag in his hand was a Type 4 special ration, designed for people who have not been able to eat normally for more than 72 hours under extreme circumstances. The whole bag of rations totaled 300 grams, mainly soft starch liquid food, supplemented with a small amount of chopped vegetables and a trace amount of protein, which can meet the most basic energy needs of the human body. But the old woman definitely couldn't finish the entire 300 grams of liquid food, so Sato could only pour out 1/3 and feed it to the old woman little by little. Ichiro's favorite food is curry. Sato didn't need the old woman to give an answer, and the old woman's weak body was not suitable for talking too much. All Sato had to do was to keep the old woman's brain thinking and avoid falling into a coma due to hunger. The old woman opened her mouth slightly and swallowed the liquid food with difficulty while shaking her head slightly to deny Sato's answer. Where's the seaweed rice ball? Seeing that the old woman could still make some small movements, Sato Zayang quickly followed up with the next guess. Grandma, you don't have to shake your head, just answer me with your eyes. I can see it. He did this not only to help the old woman save energy, but also to psychologically hint to the old woman not to close her eyes. In the next 15 minutes, Sato Zayang kept asking the old woman various questions about Ichiro Shigure in different ways, until only the last fifth of the liquid food in the lunchbox was left, and Sato Zayang finally stopped. The old woman's swallowing ability has reached its limit. When it comes to the last few mouthfuls of rice, it even takes at least 10 seconds to swallow each time. Ichiro will be very happy if he sees that grandma has eaten so much food. When Sato Zayang spoke, He looked like an elder brother who knew Ichiro well. "Grandma, come on my back first. Don't be nervous. It's just that you have been sitting for too long. You need to change your posture and rest." Before the old woman really reacted, Sato Zion carried the old woman on his back and put her in the escape capsule. "Don't worry, Grandma. You just need to rest now. I promise that, as long as you wake up, Ichiro will be by your side." Sato Zion used words to soothe the old woman's emotions while rubbing the back of the old woman's hand. After hearing Sato Zion's assurance, the old woman's brows instantly relaxed, and her eyelids, which were forced to support, slowly closed. Almost at the moment when he was sure that the old woman had fallen asleep, Sato Zion immediately closed the shell of the escape pod and started the life support device. As a blue light flashed from top to bottom on the shell, the system also popped up the physical diagnosis of the old woman. If she had been found half an hour later, it is estimated that she would not be able to be saved. Sato Zion looked at the diagnosis report on the holographic pop-up window, his eyes full of worry. Fortunately, she ate everything. This treatment will last at least 6 hours. After confirming the health of the old woman, Sato Zion packed up the food and water and put them back in the storage compartment and returned to the control position again. "Thank you for waiting for me for so long." While Sato Zion was taking care of the old woman, Crossing Shine and Manuscript 03 had been keeping alert around her without a moment's slack. Should we help her find her grandson? During the time when Yuzao was responsible for guarding Heoji, he also checked the place the old woman mentioned in a daze. There is a tunnel on Dangshan Street that leads directly to the Wuju Mountain Air Raid shelter. The entrance is in the underground parking lot on the west side. The entrance to the shelter should be there, but I always feel something is wrong. Sato Zion frowned. He seemed to have heard news about this shelter in his memory. But since the war between humans and monsters started, there have been dozens of war news like this almost every day. Except for some very influential events, Sato Zion's sensitivity to these news only remains at the level of having an impression. We have been here for more than half an hour. If we want to make a decision, it's better to do it as soon as possible. Beiying was not deliberately urging, because in the past 15 minutes, Manuscript 03's energy radar had captured 3 fleeting high energy reactions. Let's go now. It only takes 5 minutes to walk there with the speed of our 3 mechas, and it's in the same direction as our destination. Satoyu made a decision immediately and took the lead to move forward in the direction of Dangshan Street on the map. The 3 mechas lined up in a row and walked on the narrow road. The buildings here look quite retro. Beiying, who was walking at the end of the team, glanced at the ruins next to Manuscript 03. Just from the analysis of the building materials and the number of fragments, it can be seen that the vertical height of these old buildings is generally less than 50 meters. They are all things from the old times. The local government has neither the money nor the need to rebuild them. Although Satoyu's tone was very casual, he had not seen such a backward town for a long time. Beiying's words also made him feel complicated. There was both nostalgic excitement and the feeling of the changing times. It's understandable. Places like this close to the inland usually don't build fortifications against monster attacks. Only those coastal cities need the alliance to send permanent military forces to guard them. Yuzao just said a few simple words from a strategic perspective. As for whether such aging towns will be abandoned over time, he didn't want to dwell on it. In his opinion, as long as the elderly can be properly resettled and live out their twilight years in peace, it's enough. Unfortunately, looking at the ruins on this ground, Yuzao always felt that there was an indescribable desolation in the air. 5 minutes later, the hero at the head of the team finally stopped. "We are here." Satoyu followed the navigation sign on the holographic map and looked in the direction of the Dangshan Street underground parking lot. However, the next second, he felt a chill on his back, because there was nothing there. Chapter 94, Remarks on the Release. When I learned that this book could be put on the shelves, I was still very happy. In fact, I didn't have much expectations when I started writing. In the era of cool writing, most people read books just to relieve stress. Life is a mountain. It's not easy for each of us to live. If you have to use your brain, to think about the plot when reading a book, and you still have to suffer when you see the protagonist has a golden finger. It's a bit of a self-inflicted pain. But people are not creatures that can survive on fantasy alone. Although I can substitute those protagonists who can be invincible in the world with smooth sailing, every time I close the page, I can only feel emptiness. We all have shortcomings and have made many decisions that make us regret, but because of this, those characters who have overcome difficulties and shortcomings are impressive. The beginning of this book discouraged many people. It can be said that I finished writing a new chapter every day amid scolding. I read every suggestion everyone sent. I revised the beginning part at least 3 times, but in the end I still found that my writing style and ideas were a bit immature, which may be because I wrote too little. The 2 characters that everyone controversial the most were Beiying and Yuzaro. Because of her childhood experience and character flaws, Beiying almost always appears in a negative image in the first version I created. In the final analysis, it is because I do not have enough writing skills to show the balanced side of this character. For this, I want to apologize to all the book friends for giving you a bad reading experience. I also want to apologize to Beiying because my negligence caused her to bear everyone's criticism. Yuzaro was too passive and even a little cowardly in the first version, and I also want to apologize to everyone for this. Gentlemen who can read this message, thank you for your tolerance. I really like every character in the book. Yuzaro, who is struggling between humans and monsters. Beiying, who slowly learns to get along with others. General Chen, who finds a balance between a soldier and a father. Sato Yu, who seems to have kept up with the times, but is nostalgic everywhere. Daozi, who is kind and sensible, but has a secret. Yuan Zhen, who is great, but not particular about details, and likes to dig holes for Yuzaro. The lava that once wandered in the flames of war, and the white angel who gave the mobile device to Crossing Shan without hesitation. Some people are destined to change the world, while more people are just a speck of dust in the era. But this world is made up of tiny specks of dust. Thank you again for your encouragement and love, which is also the driving force for my daily progress. I will write a perfect ending to this story. Chapter 95 Leave Notice. Because the author dared to challenge the spicy jet set meal, he was so uncomfortable that he had to lie down on his stomach. So he took a day off and resumed updating at 0 hours on the 24th. Please forgive me. Don't eat turkey noodles, it will make you unlucky. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 96 Second Entrance. What happened? Yuzaro noticed Sato Ziyang's strangeness. It seems that the map is wrong. Sato Ziyang's eyes carefully checked the location on the map. The map shows that the Dongshan Street parking lot is here, but I can't find the entrance. Could it be that we went in the wrong direction? Hearing Sato Ziyang's words, Yuzaro also hurriedly opened the map and found that the coordinates on the navigation did match the current location of the 4 people. I'll go to the other side to have a look. Beiying, who was standing at the end of the team, took the initiative to drive the manuscript 03 to the street on the other side, but the result disappointed her greatly. No, there is no entrance here either. I remember it. Just when Yuzaro and Beiying were confused, Sato Ziyang suddenly remembered the news he had read. The entrance here has been abandoned, and I heard about it at the time. Okioka County had a severe 7.0 magnitude earthquake, which not only caused many old buildings to collapse, but also destroyed the tunnel that was originally used to lead to the air raid shelter. Due to limited local financial and economic resources, the new era structure and planning were not used in the reconstruction of the town, but many low buildings were built in a mixed way of old and new. Sato Yu suspected that, if most of the building materials and construction methods of the old era had not been eliminated, the local government of Okioka County would definitely have rebuilt a batch of old-fashioned buildings in an effort to save costs to the greatest extent. But Sato Yu could understand the local government's approach. After all, places like Okioka County should not consider how to develop the economy, but try every means to maintain basic operations before the local population disappears completely. It seems that it is indeed, because of the map. I thought the Alliance map would be updated with changes in various places at any time. After getting a reasonable explanation, Beiyang was no longer so nervous. The Alliance map is indeed updated at any time, but it is limited to a few urban areas with the most developed economy and transportation. Satoyu sighed slightly. I have carried out many missions in remote areas before. At that time, I asked my colleagues in the information department. They said that the satellite mapping cycle is at least once a month, and due to various restrictions, only data and images of some areas can be collected, so resources should be prioritized for those important places. As for global map updates, it would be good to have one a year. Holographic maps like the ones we usually use in cities are basically collected on the spot by manpower or drones, which is very expensive. The Alliance and the military of various countries cannot allocate so many resources to do these time-consuming and laborious tasks, so they all find relevant data suppliers to do it, but they can't keep updating at a high frequency. Holographic maps of areas like Okioka County are usually updated once every 3 to 5 years, unless they are specifically named. Colonel Sato, you really know everything. After listening to Sato Ziyang's detailed explanation, even Yuzao admired him. This is not called understanding. If you don't know something, just ask and check it. People kindly told me so much, of course I'm impressed. Sato Ziyang's tone was also much more relaxed. Since the map has not been updated, where are we going now? Beiyang brought the topic back. To be honest, I don't think we can find my grandmother's grandson. Beiyang's words are actually what everyone thinks in their hearts. After all, it is difficult for a 12-year-old child to survive a monster attack alone. Finding it or not is one thing, finding it or not is another. We just need to fulfill our responsibilities. Satoyu's tone was very calm. He had seen such things too many times since the outbreak of the war. He could understand people's grief and anxiety, but the endings of such things were often not very good. The most memorable time for Satoyu was when he helped a man who had lost an arm find his wife and daughter during a mission. Although he did not hold much hope at the time, he still completed the commission by accident. Even now, Satoyu still clearly remembers the man crying while holding his dead wife and daughter with his one arm. He kept begging Satoyu to bring the two bodies back to the Alliance for treatment. Faced with such a meaningless request, Satoyu could only refuse politely. It was not until 3 days later that his subordinates told him that the man committed suicide shortly after Satoyu drove away in the Heioji. From then on, Satoyu understood one thing: all he could do was to bring the reality to these people's eyes. As for whether the other party could accept it, it was not something Satoyu could control. Since it's called Wuju Mountain Air Raid Shelter, there must be an entrance on Wuju Mountain, and we just happened to be on the way. 10 minutes later, outside Chang'an County. After leaving the county, the 3 Mecha's activity space immediately increased a lot. The desolate hills and slopes were covered with coarse sand and gravel. The wind mixed with sand and dust blew from east to west across this lifeless mountain area. Dry gullies lay between the hills, making the uneven ground look bony. Is this what the future of mankind will look like? Looking at the place in front of him, that can only be described as lifeless, Yuzao couldn't help but sigh in his heart. Perhaps before the outbreak of the technological revolution, lush green was the theme of this area. The thriving grass and trees cover the rolling mountains like a green carpet, and the morning dew containing the sun will still drip from the green leaves and become the breakfast of insects. I still remember the tourism advertisement about Okioka County decades ago. At that time, it was still green here, and there were streams on the gravel beach. Satoyu's tone was full of nostalgia, as if he had really seen the old Mount Kiri. I seem to have seen similar illustrations in history textbooks, and they are similar to what you described. Beiyang has never seen the scene described by Satoyu with his own eyes. Hasn't it been seen in the geography textbook? Satoyu was surprised by what Beiyang said. It's only been a few decades, and there are few green forests on the entire planet. What good things have we humans done? It changed the climate, eliminated 90% of the plants, and exterminated 1/5 of the animals. Beiyang recited what he had learned by heart, but the global population has also exceeded 10 billion, and the per capita living standard has increased 3 times compared to the old era. The exploration of semi-permanent energy is also about to see the dawn. Is that what the textbooks teach now? No wonder your generation is quite optimistic. Satoru originally wanted to say a few more words, but when he thought about what had happened and could not be changed, he stuffed the long speech back into his stomach. That's the entrance, right? Yuziro, who was walking in the middle of the 3 mechas, interrupted the 2 of them, pointing his finger at the collapsed concrete fortifications at the foot of the mountain and spoke. At the same time, his energy radar suddenly sounded. Unknown energy fluctuations detected. Energy level 4. Chapter 97 Blasphemous Creation. Almost at the same time, when Crossing Cheyenne discovered the monster's activities, the radars of Manuscript 03 and Heioji also sounded. The 3 mechas immediately entered a combat posture. Wait, there's something else. At this moment, Yuziro suddenly discovered that there was a continuous broadcast from inside Wuju Mountain. There is still a distress signal in the air raid shelter. The content is probably that someone inside is seriously injured, but the entrance is blocked and can't get out, and they need help urgently. Do you want to fight first? The red light spot on the Beiyang energy radar was approaching at high speed, and his heartbeat suddenly accelerated. No, this place is too close to Wuju Mountain. Fighting a level 4 monster here will definitely affect the people in the air raid shelter. Satoru quickly gave an analysis. We have to split into 2 teams. One team is responsible for leading the level 4 monster away from here, and the other team will go to rescue the people in the air raid shelter. Beiyang and I are more powerful. The 2 of us are responsible for leading the monster away. Colonel, you are a local. You and Aozi will do the rescue. Yuziro made a quick decision. The monster moves very fast. You guys go. Roar. As soon as Yuziro finished speaking, a creepy roar that made people's scalps numb came from the valley. You should focus on self-protection. Daozi and I will support you. Satoru gritted his teeth and drove the hero to the entrance of the air raid shelter in big strides. Just when the hero disappeared behind a low mountain, a behemoth over 100 meters tall also appeared in front of Crossing Cheyenne and Manuscript 03. It was an extremely twisted body. Where the head should be, there was a thick and powerful scarlet tentacle. In the middle of the tentacle, there was a bunch of eyeballs that were completely symmetrical. Those eyeballs were uniformly dark yellow, almost rotten. They were of different sizes, and each one was turning in different directions. There were even some raised black scales on the entire tentacle, and the place where the tentacle connected to the torso was full of swollen wrinkles. Looking down, you can see that the torso of this monster is just like a rib split by a machete. The wriggling granulations and bulging meat danced under the green pus, looking no different from disgusting maggots. Unlike the thick tentacles on the head, the monster's arms were extremely deformed. The 3 joints exposed outside the skin and flesh made the entire arm turn 370-degree bends, presenting a lightning-like shape. And where the claws and fingers should be, there were centipede-like tentacles. Just looking at its yellow and green color made people feel uncomfortable. The lower body of the monster is neither human nor animal, but has 3 spider legs that are as strong as the base of a turret. On each leg, there are countless long hairs that look like tentacles, swimming in the air like seaweed. What the hell is this? The moment Beiyang saw the monster, her stomach suddenly began to churn. If the creator really exists, then this monster must be the greatest blasphemy against God. It's indescribable. It has many biological characteristics, like a monster crawling out of a mountain of corpses. Yuziro's mental stimulation is no less than Beiyang's, but as a mechanical life form, he will not have such a reaction as hair standing on end. The energy level is between 4 and 5. There is no intelligence. I will be responsible for seducing it from the front. Don't fight it in close combat first. Use long-range attacks to support me. Gathering intelligence is a priority. Okay. The moment Beiyang agreed, Manuscript 03 also unfolded the X-shaped missile launch wing armor on its back. At the same time, Xingshan's abdominal armor has also completed its transformation, revealing the dragon-riding gorilla turret group. Target locked fire. Bang, bang, bang. As the monster moved madly towards the location of crossing Shine and Beiying, countless giant armor-piercing shells flew out of the dark muzzle and ruthlessly drilled into the monster's pus-filled chest. Run. The two steel giants immediately ran towards the other side of Wuju Mountain, and the Chenglan guerrilla turret group also changed direction with crossing Shine's movement, crossing 180 degrees on the circular track and continuously shooting at the monster behind crossing Shine. The impact of the rain of bullets did not slow down the speed of the monster's charge at all. Even though its body had been hit with dozens of dense bullet holes, it had no intention of falling down. At this moment, Crossing Shine and Manuscript 03 had all increased their power to the highest level, but even so, the monster was still closing the distance between the two sides with a slight speed advantage. Roar. The monster in pursuit suddenly roared, and then Crossing Shine saw a horrifying scene behind him. The huge tentacles of the monster's head suddenly fixed in front of it, and the end split into 5 petals like a flower. Saw-like fangs were scattered throughout, and a slender tongue like a venomous snake stretched out from the crack, forming a relative stillness with the running Crossing Shine. Spread out to both sides. Use the hill as a cover. At this distance, Yuzao knew without even thinking that the monster was going to launch a long-range attack. Crossing Shine and Manuscript 03 had just hidden behind the hill separately, and a dark yellow liquid shot at the place where Crossing Shine disappeared like a water gun. Bang! The thick rock wall burst into a burst of smoke and dust on the spot, and the scattered gravel had not yet fallen before it was corroded by the liquid shot by the monster in the air. Venom spewing, the liquid is highly corrosive. Beiying also witnessed this horrible attack and immediately remembered this information firmly in his mind. It's just like a laser. Even Yuzao himself didn't expect that the monster's long-range attack would be this way. Even if he could resist the corrosive effect of the venom, the armor would probably be pierced by the impact. Keep moving, and observe its movements as much as possible, before being caught up. Boom. On the other side, Satoyu was driving the hero and smashed the obstacle blocking the entrance of the air raid shelter with one punch. A tunnel only 5 meters wide suddenly appeared in front of Satoyu and Daozi. The Mecha must not be able to get in. Satoyu frowned, and then he and Daozi unfastened the fastener on the control position. Daozi, take out the medical kit and 3 days of rations, and put them in the bag. Satoyu instructed Daozi, while pulling down the hidden cabinet on the ceiling of the cockpit. Just as Daozi quickly put the supplies into the backpack and prepared to get up, Satoyu suddenly grabbed Daozi's petite hand and handed her a brand new black pistol. Although Daozi had participated in shooting training, she had never encountered a situation where she had to get off the Mecha, since she and Satoyu went on a mission together. Here, seeing that Daozi was a little dazed, Satoyu directly stuffed the gun into Daozi's hand. SP Smart Pistol, an experimental product made according to the Mecha system. Each bullet has a locking and tracking function, and there are only 2 magazines. He still remembered the evaluation he gave when he was invited by Dr. Maki to test the gun for the first time. A stupid pistol, as long as the enemy can be fixed in the holographic frame, you can pull the trigger without thinking. Listen, Daozi, you only shoot all enemies within 3 meters of us, and leave the rest to me. Daozi nodded vigorously. Very good. Before getting off the Mecha, Satoyu took a last look at the dozen red dots on the energy radar. That was the monster wandering in the air raid shelter tunnel. Chapter 98 Dilemma. Daozi, turn the flashlight to strong light mode. Sato and Daozi leaned against each other and walked cautiously into the mountain. Since the two of them entered the tunnel, the sunlight has been isolated outside the cave entrance. If they hadn't brought a portable light source, they would have been in pitch black darkness in a short time. A cold and damp breeze blew across Sato's resolute face. While the two of them were not too far away from the cave entrance, he quickly used his hand to illuminate the surrounding environment. The tunnel structure is made of grey rectangular bricks. Judging from the raised particles and moss on the bricks, the air raid shelter should have been built before the 4th technological revolution. Sato followed the light in his hand to the top of the tunnel and found that there was a black cable embedded in the gap between the bricks, and every 10 meters, an old-fashioned chandelier could be seen hanging on the cable. Originally, these chandeliers should have been responsible for the lighting of the air raid shelter, but for some reason, they could not light up when humans needed them. This added a bit of gloom to the tunnel. Looking at the dust and gravel on the ground, Sato Zayang silently installed the flashlight on the lower part of the heavy pistol and took out a tactical dagger and placed it under the hand holding the gun. Dap, dap. Sato Zayang and Dalzi, one tall and one short, walked side by side. Both of them had stepped as lightly as possible, but the sound of combat boots stepping on the debris still echoed in the deep corridor. At this time, they had advanced 200 meters deep into the tunnel. The bright cave entrance had already shrunk into a white light spot the size of a fist behind the two of them. Who? Sato Zayang exhaled a breath of white air from his mouth. He could clearly feel that the temperature around him was dropping sharply. As for Dalzi, who was walking beside him, he would shiver from time to time. At this moment, Sato Zayang suddenly felt Dalzi poking him with his elbow, so he immediately looked at the position where Dalzi's flashlight was shining. A pool of dark red blood was lying quietly and silently on the dirty floor tiles. This instantly made the two of them alert. Satoshi moved forward cautiously while slowly shining the flashlight in the direction of the bloodstain until they came to the first fork in the road. The bloodstain extends to the right, but a faint sound of airflow can be heard in the tunnel on the left. Satoshi stood in the middle of the intersection, thinking carefully about what might happen in the two directions. Since the sound of airflow can be heard in the tunnel on the left, it is very likely that this road is not a dead end, but considering that the general air raid shelter has only 2 entrances and exits, Satoshi does not believe that he can walk out of this road before he sees the refuge area. As for where the back of this road is connected to, and where the sound of airflow comes from, Satoshi has no idea. In comparison, the road on the right with bloodstains as a guide seems more reliable. Although places with blood often mean danger, it at least proves that the last group of people who came to the air raid shelter chose this road. In just 30 seconds, Satoshi made a decision. He led Dalzi to the road on the right. After walking about another 100 meters, the color of the bloodstains became brighter and brighter. Maybe the blood loss is increasing. This might be what Sato Zayang thought of first, but after a few steps, he found the second pool of blood. Compared with the bloodstains that have been guiding him and Dalzi, this pool of blood is much larger in terms of area. Not only that, the shape of this pool of blood is like a bucket of paint splashed on the ground, and the whole presents an extremely exaggerated diffusion shape. According to Sato Zayang's experience, this must be the amount of bleeding that someone may have after being seriously injured in an instant. Sure enough, when Sato Zayang moved the flashlight to the side of the bloodstain, he saw torn clothes and a few strands of hair coagulated in the blood. This also confirmed Sato Zayang's guess that someone was indeed attacked here. There are no shells, no sharp weapons, and no traces of fighting. Sato Zayang's expression became more and more serious. He guessed that this might be a one-sided massacre, but there was not enough evidence. In addition to blood and hair, there are no body parts and organs, so there is only the smell of blood in the air without stench. Thinking of this, Sato Zayang has lost the clues to continue to deduce. Dalzi's face was also a little pale. Although she and Sato Zayang could drive mechas to fight monsters and had seen many bloody scenes, the killing of monsters and the killing of people were completely different concepts. She still felt instinctive physical discomfort. After seeing Dalzi's reaction, Sato Zayang decisively changed his position and asked Dalzi to stand 3 meters behind him and continued to move forward in a front and back formation. In the next few dozen steps, the two saw more and more bloodstains, and the color became brighter and brighter, and there were even many footprints with dust on them. Damn. The sudden subtle sound made Sato Zayang, who was walking in front, stop immediately. Sato Zayang even suppressed his breathing to the lowest level. He pricked up his ears and waited patiently for the sound to appear again, while carefully moving the light source under the pistol to search for threats lurking in the dark. However, until he swept the tunnel from left to right with a flashlight, he did not find anything unusual. At this time, at least 30 seconds had passed since he heard the sound. In the dead silence, the empty and dark tunnel was as frightening as the esophagus of a demon. Should we continue walking? Satoshi recalled the last scene he saw before leaving the Mecha. He was sure that there were at least a dozen energy reactions in this air raid shelter. It was obvious that he and Dalzi were on the road to danger. But it was precisely because monsters would hunt humans that Satakshan was sure that the end of this road must be the sender of the distress signal. After a brief hesitation, Satakshan led Dowsy to move forward. Now Satakshan felt like he was walking on thin ice every step he took. No matter how careful he was, his combat boots on the sand and gravel would make a sound. 1 step, 2 steps. Satakshan counted his steps silently in his mind, and his tense index finger was ready to pull the trigger at any time. 10 steps. Satakshan stopped suddenly, his eyes fixed on the ground, and his whole body was in a tense state. The blood trail that the two had been following was completely interrupted here, and above the blood trail that had not yet completely solidified, there were 2 huge footprints that did not belong to humans at all. Satozayan could feel that he seemed to be being watched by a cold gaze. He once again used the light source to scan the tunnel, and suddenly found that the blood trail here covered the entire corridor. Damn. Until then, the familiar sound sounded in Satozayan's ears again, and a drop of bright red blood fell in front of his feet. The next second Dowsy's flashlight hit a deformed monster, and this monster was hanging above Satozayan's head. Chapter 99, A Final Battle. Roar. The originally silent tunnel was suddenly broken by a shrill howl. Bang. Almost at the moment when the upside down monster pounced down, 2 silver bullets pierced its forehead, bringing out a string of bright red blood beads. Satoyu immediately rolled to the left, avoiding the monster that had been headshot in midair. Snap. The headless monster fell heavily to the ground. Even so, its slender limbs still twitched a few times before it completely stopped struggling. However, what was waiting for the 2 were more monsters falling from the top of the tunnel. Fire. Satoyu shouted at Dowsy behind him, while pulling the trigger to shoot at the nearest monster. Deafening gunshots rang out continuously, echoing repeatedly in the dim tunnel. The dazzling white flashlight and the flames from the muzzle symphonically reflected each other, lighting up the blood and flesh blooming in the air. It was not until then that Satoyu could barely see the appearance of these monsters. Unlike the Type 2nd monsters recorded in the Alliance database, these ferocious monsters are only about 2 meters in size, which is amiable compared to those guys who are more than 5 meters long. But Satoyu would rather face a big guy like the Hound. With the help of flashlights and muzzle flashes, Satoyu found that the size and structure of these monsters are very similar to humans, but they are deformed and weird everywhere. Their limbs are more slender than humans, but their bodies are thin like stunted children. Compared with other Type 2nd monsters, these humanoid monsters have almost no muscles on their bodies, and the thick bones are festering and yellow skin. What makes Satoyu's hair stand on end is that these monsters move completely in a spider-like crawling way, and even their attacks are mainly based on jumping and stabbing with their forelimbs. But such a deformed body has a head similar to that of a human. The shriveled skin is full of thick wrinkles, and the 2 swollen eyeballs are covered with bloodshot, as if they will burst out of the eye sockets in the next second. Under the creepy eyes, there is a completely disappeared nose bone and 2 thumb-sized holes. Whenever they open their huge mouths, that are big enough to split the ears, Satoyu can see the interlaced fangs and the yellow pus sticking between the teeth. Bean. Cover me and change the bullets. As Satoyu emptied the 12 large caliber bullets in the magazine, the number of monsters was reduced by half. As soon as the voice fell, Satoyu used the dagger in his hand to cut the neck of a monster. But this knife did not cause fatal damage to the monster, but Satoyu was thrown to the ground. Fuck. Satoyu tried desperately to break free from the monster's restraints, but the monster's sharp bone claws had already embedded in his flesh and blood. At the critical moment, Dowsy chose to shoot all the 3 remaining bullets in the magazine at the monster. Bang, bang, bang. At the moment, when the monster's head exploded, the blood with a pungent smell also splashed all over Satozayan's body. If Satozayan had not closed his eyes and mouth in time, he would have swallowed the disgusting liquid. The danger is not over yet. The heavy corpse completely pressed on Satozayan, and Dowsy also emptied the first magazine. Don't worry about me, you go first. Satozayan endured the severe pain from his forearm and pushed the corpse away with all his strength, but at the same time, another monster rushed in front of Satozayan who had not yet stood up. In a flash, Dowsy, who had not yet finished changing bullets, suddenly rushed out from behind Sato's iron, gritted his teeth and hit the monster that was still in the process of flying with his shoulder. Boom. The next second, the monster's huge body fell on the stone wall like a ball, splashing a cloud of dust. At the same time, Dowsy, who had exerted too much force, also lost her balance and fell to the ground, and the magazine in her hand slipped to a position that she could not reach. Click. Satoyu, who had not yet stood up, had already completed the reloading, and the reel made a crisp sound. Bang, bang, bang. Satoyu exerted his core strength and directly shot with both hands, holding the gun in a supine position, knocking down the last few attacking monsters one by one. When the last steaming metal shell flew out of the gun chamber, the gunshot had become the only sound still echoing in the tunnel. Even though all the enemies in front of him had disappeared, Satoyu still did not relax his vigilance. He immediately stood up, skillfully threw the empty magazine out by inertia, and inserted the last bullet. Satoyu gritted his teeth and panted, while using the light source hanging under the pistol to quickly scan the tunnel full of monster corpses, looking for possible escapees. It was not until Dowsy got up from the ground again and leaned against Satoyu again while changing the magazine that Satoyu relaxed a little. Give me the medical kit, I'll handle it myself, you stay alert. Satoyu could not be sure if there were any new enemies, so he could not let Dowsy help him bandage his wounds. One of them must be in a combat readiness posture at all times. After Dowsy put the medical kit on the ground and went on alert again with a gun, Satoyu put the raised pistol back into the holster. 2 8cm wounds. Damn. Satoyu removed the light source from the pistol and held it in his mouth and poured alcohol directly on the wound on his forearm. Crunch. The iron-like pain made Satoyu's veins bulge, and even the outer shell of the flashlight was bitten by him. But he still compressed the entire wound treatment time to less than 1 minute. When Satoyu's heartbeat returned to normal, even his hand holding the gun was shaking. It was a miracle that the two survived the battle just now. The monsters not only had the advantage in numbers, but also had physical abilities that overwhelmed the two of them. In addition, there was no cover in the entire tunnel, and they could not run away. Sato and Dowsy had no choice but to fight. Even now, when recalling the moment when he was crushed to the ground by the monster, Sato felt scared, but he was not afraid of dying, but that he would not be able to delay long enough to let Dowsy escape. Although Dowsy did not listen to him and leave him alone, in the end, it was a blessing that both of them survived. Next time you encounter this situation, even if you don't want to run, don't fight them in close combat easily, understand? Sato knew that he could not control Dowsy's choice, so he could only persuade her not to use such a dangerous method next time. In fact, Sato could not find a better choice. Dowsy could at least rely on her terrifying physical strength to fight to the death. If it was Sato, he would not even be able to break free. Rustle. Just when Sato was slightly relaxed, he suddenly heard a strange sound coming from the front. 2 white light sources instantly shone towards the place where the sound came from. Please don't kill me. A tall and thin man holding a flashlight hurriedly raised his hands from the shadows. Chapter 100. A candle in the wind. Tell me your name and why you are here. Satoyu narrowed his eyes slightly. Even though he found that the other person was a human, he still did not put down the gun in his hand. Kobayashi-suke. My name is Kobayashi-suke. I came out of the closed area because I heard gunshots in the tunnel. Closed area. Satoyu carefully looked at the man named Kobayashi-suke. He had a neat short hair, a high nose bridge, and a little nervousness in his black eyes. He was wearing a white shirt stained with stains and a pair of casual loose trousers on his legs. He looked no different from an ordinary worker. It's the area further inside where we took refuge. Because there are monsters in the tunnel, we closed the door and huddled inside. Kobayashi-suke hurriedly explained. Put your hands behind your head and turn around. Satoyu did not repeat his words because of the other party's question, but his face was obviously gloomier. I know. Don't shoot. Kobayashi-suke, who reacted, immediately put his hands on the back of his head and slowly showed his back to Satoyu and Dowsy. Just as Sato thought, Kobayashi had a pistol hanging on his waist. After receiving Sato's eye signal, Daozi quickly stuck to Kobayashi's back, not only put the opponent's pistol into his pocket, but also checked whether the opponent was carrying other dangerous items. "You don't move." Kobayashi just uttered a word and was interrupted by Sato's scolding. "We are the pilots of the Watcher Alliance. Let professionals do the shooting. They won't hurt you." The reason why Sato was so cautious was because he had suffered losses in this regard. Some people have not received professional training. Not only can they not use guns, but their mental quality is also extremely fragile. It is easy to cause trouble when they are dominated by fear. This is considered good. There are also some people who usually look harmless, but once they encounter danger, they will ignore others and even kill their companions for survival. As the saying goes, you can know a person's face, but not his heart. Sato can't guarantee that he will not make a mistake, so he can only hold all the firepower in his own hands. In this way, even if they encounter an emergency, he and Daozi will not be killed by others. After a simple body search, Daozi has confirmed that Kobayashi's has nothing that can pose a threat to them, so she handed the pistol and the business card she found to Sato Yu, the assistant of the Okioka County Revitalization Bureau. The official position is not small. You can put your hands down. Sato Yu has heard of this agency called the Revitalization Bureau. It is a new product that was born after the merger of the three countries. It was reorganized from the original local financial department. It has certain policy discretion and is specifically responsible for stimulating local economic development. Although the power of the Revitalization Bureau is not small, the economic indicators required by the agency every quarter are also quite high, so it is a department with both risks and benefits. Kobayashi is already an assistant of the Revitalization Bureau at a young age, which is equivalent to the deputy director. This is not a common thing. "Can I speak?" Kobayashi obviously hasn't recovered from Satoyu's threat just now, and even his words have become hesitant. Of course, it was just a necessary routine check. Don't take it too seriously. Satoyu put on a friendly face again, stepped over the monster's body, and walked to Kobayashi's side. That's good, that's good. Kobayashi's tense nerves finally relaxed, and his face showed an irrepressible joy. "Did you two come here after receiving a distress signal? What should I call you?" "United Front Corps Pilot, Sato Yu, Daozi." Sato Yu was about to shake hands cordially, but he noticed that his body was still stained with blood plasma sprayed by the monster, so he withdrew his hand. "Then I will call you Commander Sato, and Daozi, Miss." Kobayashi looked at Daozi with a smile that was a little overwhelmed, as if he didn't believe that a girl who looked underage was actually a pilot. But Daozi didn't mind it much. She nodded with satisfaction, indicating that she could accept this title. "Please follow me, the closed area is not far ahead." After saying this, Kobayashi turned on the light in his hand and led Satoyu and Daozi to walk deeper into the tunnel. "Is there something wrong with the power system of the air raid shelter?" Satoyu, who was walking behind Kobayashi, did not put the gun back into the holster, but kept holding it in his hand. I'm sorry, it's not a problem with the power, but we manually turned off some of the lighting facilities in the tunnel." Kobayashi heard Satoyu's doubts. "To save energy?" "No, it's because these monsters are very sensitive to light sources, but as long as there is no light, these monsters will fall into a state similar to hibernation in the dark. That's why you didn't turn on the flashlight when you came to find us." Kobayashi's answer solved another doubt of Satoyu. But Satoyu's eyes looking at Kobayashi were still very complicated, which was the state he would have when he was on guard against someone. "There are still quite a few people in the closed area. I saw on your broadcast signal that someone was injured. I just happened to have some first aid supplies with me." "That's great." Kobayashi's assistant immediately showed a happy expression. "If you two can still keep up with the physical strength, let's run." "No problem." At Kobayashi's assistant's suggestion, the three ran all the way through the last 200 meters and arrived at the gate of the closed area. This is a steel explosion-proof door built in the old times. According to Satoyu's judgment of its specifications, this door should be able to withstand at least 1000 megapascals of pressure. "Please provide me with some lighting." Kobayashi's assistant held the blood-stained wheel on the door with both hands and turned it to the left with all his strength. Clang. The sound of the hinge rolling was low and heavy, which reminded Satoyu of his first memory of riding a lift to drive a hero, but at that time his co-pilot was not Dowsy. Gulp. Kobayashi's assistant finally pushed the wheel to the end, and the cold door slowly opened in front of everyone. Dim and oppressive lights, damp and cold air, rows of bunk beds, boxes of supplies piled up everywhere. The old people who heard the noise raised their heads and looked at Satoyu and Aozi, who were standing there in a daze with desperate eyes. Please don't point the flashlight at them, both of you. Satoyu trembled as he turned the flashlight to low light mode and followed Kobayashi in silence with a heavy heart. He didn't expect that there would be hundreds of old people gathered here. But he didn't expect that the eyes these old people looked at him would be so suffocating, like a candle swaying in the wind. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.